Chapter 1339. The number one general of the ancient heavenly court, whose strength shocked the entire greater world. It could be said that half of the reason why the ancient heavenly court was so strong in that era was because of this person. When he was at his peak, his combat strength was too terrifying, and it shocked everyone. However, it was precisely such a valiant character that had almost perished in a great turmoil. Although he survived, the ancient heavenly court was destroyed. Now, although the ancient heavenly court still existed, it could only be considered to be at death's door. Too much time had passed, and the world had long forgotten that history. However, some people still vaguely remembered how powerful the ancient heavenly court was, and the man who was known to have carried half the sky of the ancient heavenly court was still alive. However, his limbs were broken, and the injuries from several eras ago had not healed. Rotten black blood dripped from his wounds. Just as he said, he did not have much lifespan left and was about to die. And before he died, he wanted to repay his life. In this era, Jiang Chen had a grudge with the ancient heavenly court, and he even destroyed it. However, in the end, Jiang Chen's true grudge was with the ancient heavenly court, not the ancient heavenly court. Therefore, the man came. He did not mind that Jiang Chen had destroyed the ancient heavenly court. He only cared that it was this man who turned the tide and saved the world, and also saved him. In fact, if it were not for Jiang Chen, the ancient heavenly court would have been completely destroyed. Moreover, to the number one general of the ancient heavenly court, what was the current ancient heavenly court? It was not the ancient heavenly court after all. It seems that there are people in this world who owe me their lives, and they still remember. Jiang Chen chuckled. He looked at the old man with broken limbs and asked, "You owe me your life several eras ago. Do you still remember? If you don't pay it back, I won't care about anything. After all, my memories have long disappeared. Whether you remember or not is your business. Whether I pay it back or not is my business," said the number one general of the ancient heavenly court. Then his gaze fell on An Shingshan again with a trace of contempt in his eyes. The Red Spider Lily clan is just a coward. Back then, when the ancient heavenly court was fighting and stopping the three worlds of Een, what was the Red Spider Lily clan doing? You've sealed your mountain and avoided the world. When Enchantment heard this, his face darkened. Clearly, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. However, he didn't refute it because it was just as the old man had said. During that battle, the Permitha Flower clan had gone into hiding. It was also because they didn't participate in the war that the Red Spider Lily clan's strength and foundation were still present. After accumulating for several generations, the Red Spider Lily clan had completely risen in this generation. They supported the Holy Land and established themselves as the number one power in the Great Thousand World. However, this was nothing to the number one general of the ancient heavenly court. A coward will always be a coward. You are old and crippled. You are not my opponent. And Xingtian stared at the old man as he shook his head. Why are you so insistent? Isn't it good to enjoy a peaceful old age? Old age? Enjoy? After that battle, there was no such thing as enjoying life in my later years. The ancient heavenly court's number one general said in a low voice. You won't understand that the Permitha Flower clan is heartless. You only care about yourselves. We are thinking for the future. And Shengtian explained, look at this generation. With the support of the Red Spider Lily clan, the Great Thousand World has been governed beautifully. Beautifully? You have probably forgotten that the Great Thousand World was born from the ancestral realm. What have you done? Attacking the ancestral realm and destroying the six realms. What you have done is endangering the Great Thousand World. If the ancestral realm was still around, why would the Great Thousand World fear the three realms of Yin and Yang? The ancient heavenly court's number one general knew many secrets of the past, especially the battle that destroyed the ancestral realm. In that battle, the ancient heavenly court was fighting the three realms of Yin, while the ancient netherworld was fighting the three realms of Yang. The ancestral realm's powerhouses were all dispatched to support the ancient heavenly court and ancient netherworld. In the end, the ancestral realm was empty and was besieged by a group of forces led by the Permitha Flower clan. They even used a secret technique to curse the invincible realm, causing the ancestral realm to be destroyed. The invincible realm was cursed, and the invincible realm was killed in battle. The culprit behind all of this was the Permitha Flower clan. Now, several generations had passed. The Permitha Flower clan had established the Holy Land and governed the Great Thousand World. Were they trying to whitewash themselves? They probably didn't know that many people had survived from prehistoric times until now. They were like an ancient history that recorded the truth of everything that had happened in the past. What nonsense are you spouting? How dare you slander the Permitha Flower clan? And Sheng Tian shouted angrily. The divine power in his body erupted, and the laws of order danced around him like divine chains. His entire person became divine, and a Permitha flower bloomed behind him. Its enchanting light illuminated the heavens. Oh, it seems like you really can't beat him. Zhangchen looked at the ancient heavenly court's #1 general and said softly, "Why don't you leave? Are you all *King dead? If you owe money, you must repay money. If you owe a life, you must repay a life. You old farts have lived from prehistoric times until now. Do you want to bear the infamy of a loser before you die? All of you, pay back your lives." At this moment, the ancient heavenly court's #1 general roared into the sky. His voice shook the surroundings, and even the starry sky changed color. The next moment, in the eastern star region, 3 divine lights shot into the sky. In the starry sky, 3 pairs of eyes opened, shining like the sun. Then, in the western star region, the southern star region, and the northern star region, divine lights shot into the sky. At the same time, a shocking aura erupted, sweeping across the entire Greater Thousand Domains. There was the aura of half-immortals spreading out, and there was also the aura of supreme extraordinaries. Some people with hunchbacks walked through the starry sky towards this place. There were also people who only had a wisp of remnant soul left. Like a sinister wind, it covered the brilliance of the stars in the sky and slowly floated towards this place. There were also people who only had a head left, with firewood as their body and broken swords as their limbs. They cut through the void and descended here. In just a dozen breaths of time, a group of old, weak, sick, and disabled appeared in front of Jiang Chun. They did not speak to Jiang Chun, but their auras were like rainbows, and the wisp of determination between their brows intimidated in Sheng Tian's mind. They are all mighty figures from prehistoric times. Heavens! These people, what did they go through? The injuries they suffered in prehistoric times have not healed until now. If these people were in their peak condition, even 10 hurricane lilies would not be enough to defeat them. Many people were watching from afar, but when they saw these old, weak, and disabled soldiers, many people were so excited that they could not speak. Someone saw their family's old ancestor, seeing it from the ancient painting. Some people also saw a creature that was very similar to a statue in an ancient temple in the Western Star region. They suspected that the statue had come to life. And Sheng Tian, we are here to pay back our lives. We are also here to give our lives. Do you dare to accept us? Do you dare? Chapter 1340. A group of old monsters that survived from the prehistoric era had come. Their bodies were incomplete, and even their souls were incomplete. They were in a very bad state. However, their deterrence was extremely strong. Each of them stood there, as if they could hold up the sky. No one would have thought that this group of people would really come to repay their lives. At this moment, Shengshun's expression was extremely gloomy, and his eyes were filled with fear. He was from the Red Spider Lily clan, and his strength was extremely strong. Otherwise, he would not have come to guard the Holy Land. However, even he was a little afraid now. These were all prehistoric powerhouses. Normally, any one of them would be able to stir up a storm, not to mention a large group of them. Now, with these people joining forces, Shengshun did not dare to make a move at all. If I want to destroy the Holy Land, can you all help? Jiang Chen asked, his voice without the slightest ripple. We are only here to repay our lives, to repay the lives of your previous lives. It has nothing to do with your current life. Even if you don't say it, we will still eradicate the malignant tumor of the red spider lily. A few powerhouses with incomplete bodies spoke. Their attitude towards Jiangchun was also lukewarm. After all, everyone knew that the Jiangchun who had not recovered his memories was not the Jiangchun of the past. However, it was precisely under such circumstances that these people still had the righteousness to choose to repay their lives. One had to say that these people were indeed courageous. You are all incomplete, and your condition is no longer at your peak. Why do you have to do this? And Shengshen said in a deep voice, the general trend of this era is like this. My red spider lily seeks the world, and the Holy Land restricts all sides. It is difficult for you to destroy the red spider lily and the Holy Land. Difficult to destroy? When we were at our peak, what was the red spider lily? Not to mention this so-called Holy Land. Today, we came here with the determination to die. Clearly, these prehistoric powerhouses had reached the end of their lifespans. Their injuries were too severe. The injuries left behind by the prehistoric era could not be healed until now. This time, they knew that they would die. Even if they won, the last wisp of origin essence in their bodies would dissipate. Death was their final destination. And for this battle, to them, there were only 4 words: no fear, no shame. Everyone, how about we all take a step back? The Holy Land is nothing more than a power that we, the red spider lily, supported. The Holy Land can be destroyed, but we, the red spider lily, will coexist peacefully with you. How about it? At this moment, another person walked out from the Holy Land. His entire body was shrouded in a white mist, as if he was an immortal. Above his head, there was an auspicious aura of the 3 flowers at one's prominence, making him look like a true immortal walking in the world. And Ching Tsang, you're still alive? At that moment, the old monsters exclaimed. Clearly, they knew in Ching Tsang. And Ching Tsang also smiled, cupped his hands, and said, I didn't expect to see you again after we parted in prehistoric times. How are you? As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of these old monsters immediately turned ugly. How is everyone? And Ching Tsang was not consoling them, but mocking them. He was also reminding them that he and Ching Tsang was still in his prime, while they were just old, weak, sick, and disabled. The 3rd elder of the Red Spider Lily clan is as detestable as ever. And Ching Tsang, even if you two join forces today, you won't be able to stop us. After a few breaths, these old monsters spoke. Although they were shocked by Ching Tsang's existence, they were still fearless. The Red Spider Lily clan has already given in. If you insist, then I don't mind giving it a try. And Ching Tsang said softly. As his eyes opened and closed, the universe seemed to be inverted. The sun and moon seemed to be annihilated, and the great Tao even turned into a sea of stars that floated under his feet. He was very powerful. He had almost become a true immortal in prehistoric times. If not for the last battle in prehistoric times that caused the great Tao to be incomplete and the laws to be incomplete, with his talent, he would definitely be able to become an immortal. Even so, with his current cultivation level, he was infinitely close to becoming a true immortal. He had the strength and confidence to challenge these old monsters. Moreover, he was not alone here. And Sheng Tian was also here. Buzz! Buzz! At that moment, a series of roars came from the bodies of these old monsters. Their bodies were covered in flames. That was the burning of their origin energy. They wanted to reach their peak state before the end of their lifespans. After this battle, what will be left of you? In the end, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. There will be no trace of you in this world. And Sheng Tian said disdainfully. So, what if you've reached your peak? I'm not afraid of you. You are not what you used to be. Even if you reach your peak, you won't be able to return to your peak state, and Ching Tsang said. However, these old monsters ignored him. The divine power in their bodies burned, the laws surged, and their origin energy boiled. After a few breaths, their originally incomplete bodies recovered. Their white hair turned black, and their incomplete souls were complete. Waves of earth-shaking auras erupted, shaking the entire greater thousand world. Kill! Red Spider Lily Clan, you should have died in prehistoric times. With a few angry roars, a group of old monsters rushed out and pounced toward Xingtian and Song. Boom! Boom! Explosions sounded abruptly. Multiple domains spread out in this place, as if it had turned into a forbidden area. Zhang Chun was outside and could not see the situation inside the domain at all. They're here to repay your life. If they all die, will you feel guilty? Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded in Zhang Chen's ears. Zhang Chun was given a scare. His whole body tensed up, and he quickly moved backwards. Then, he turned around and saw Tianzong looking at him with a faint smile. "What are you doing here?" Zhang Chen said in a low voice. "Have you found a way to break the bond between us?" "No, no, no. How can it be that easy?" Tianzong shook his head. "You're the master, and I'm just a living being formed from the body you shed in your previous life. It's easier said than done to replace you." "Then what are you doing here?" Zhang Chen asked. "To watch a show," Tianzong said mockingly. His eyes shone brightly. With a wave of his hand, the layers of domains became transparent, allowing Zhang Chen to see Zhang Kuang inside. Then Tianzong pointed at one of the living beings. He had 2 horns on his head and bone wings on his back. At this moment, he was fighting with Enchantment. "In prehistoric times, he was one of your most loyal followers," Tianzong said. "I forgot," Zhang Chen said. "It's okay. I'll help you remember." Tianzong seemed very happy. "I'll help you remember everything about them, then let you watch them die. When that time comes, what will you do? Your heart, your soul, can you bear this kind of pain?" As his voice echoed, a mysterious light beam penetrated Zhang Chen's soul before he could react. Immediately after, many images appeared like stars in the sky. Chapter 1341. The scenes were like shadows, overlapping layer upon layer. Characters appeared one after another, and battles erupted one after another. Zhang Chun was immersed in these scenes. His expression was calm, but his heart was in turmoil. He couldn't remember the events of his previous lives, but in these scenes, he saw himself from back then. He also saw some old friends. These people had followed him to the north and south. They set out from the ancestral realm to kill ancient spirits and pacify the Dark Blood era. They attacked from the south and shook the 3 Yin realms. They descended from the north and met the 3 Yang realms. In the end, the people around him died one after another. He also dragged his crippled body and stood in the ruins of the starry sky. He looked up at the sky and didn't speak for a long time. The world changed greatly and the great Tao collapsed. After that battle, the ancient heavenly court declined, the ancient netherworld disappeared, the various holy lands collapsed, and the races that stood at the top were also wiped out. In this world, only a small number of people survived. Zhang Chen of that era seemed very lonely and lonely. He seemed to have turned into a statue, standing in the ruins of the starry sky and watching the future generations rebuild their homes. Finally, one day his body collapsed. The injuries from that great battle had not healed in the end. He entered reincarnation. With reluctance, he hurriedly looked at this world until it disappeared. In these scenes, Zhang Chen saw several old monsters. However, at that time, they were very young, very strong, and full of vitality. Unfortunately, they were also heavily injured in the final battle. Why? I still can't remember. After an unknown period of time, the scenes disappeared. Zhang Chen stood in place and wiped the tears from his face. He didn't know when he started crying, but his heart was filled with panic. He looked at the old monsters fighting in the domain and opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. They're your close friends, your most loyal followers, and your brothers. Now, they have come to pay for their lives. Are you going to watch them die? Tianzong joked. In the end, you can only watch them die. After all, the current you is too weak. I don't remember them. Zhang Chen's mouth was filled with bitterness. He had no memories, but at this moment, he wanted to save these old monsters from his soul. However, just as Tianzong had said, he was too weak. He was indeed invincible among his peers. However, compared to these cultivators who had lived for countless years, Jiang Chen's cultivation was really nothing. He could not change this outcome. At this moment, the battle in the domain had reached its climax. There were old monsters who exploded, igniting the last of their foundational force, wishing to return together with the peaceful life heaven. However, peaceful life heaven was at the peak, Tao methods naturally at the peak. He avoided it, not suffering any injuries. Then another person burned himself, but he still couldn't hurt in Qingsong at all. At this moment, Jiang Chen clenched his fists, his eyes bloodshot. He suddenly turned around and stared at Tianzong. Can you beat them? I don't know. Tianzong teased. Why? You want me to help you? As long as you help me, feel free to state your conditions. Jiang Chen said solemnly. Tianzong seemed to be waiting for Jiang Chen to say this. After hearing this, Tianzong shrugged and said, Then give me your body. I might be able to save them. You want to control my body? Jiang Chen frowned, then nodded without hesitation. Come on. Aren't you afraid that I'll completely destroy you after taking over your body? Tianzong asked. Come on, stop talking nonsense. Jiang Chen didn't say much. He opened his arms, closed his eyes, and whispered, Save them. Perhaps? Tianzong chuckled. Buzz! The moment he finished speaking, Tianzong turned into a stream of light and entered Jiang Chen's body. The next moment, when Jiang Chen opened his eyes, an extremely terrifying aura erupted. At this moment, Jiang Chen showed a cold smile. Looking down at his palm, he said in a low voice, Is this the true body? Not bad. Boom! Then, he rushed out with both hands. Like the sharpest blade in the world, he tore apart the domain and rushed in. Huh! Jiang Chen and Sheng Tian and Qingsong were shocked. Looking at Jiang Chen, whose aura suddenly skyrocketed, a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. It could even be said to be fear. It was only because they were wondering whether Jiang Chen had come back. I'm not Jiang Chen. I'm Tianzong. Have you heard of me? Tianzong was very arrogant. At the same time, chains burst out from his body and captured the remaining old monsters, then threw them out of the domain. Tianzong, which reincarnation of him is it? Why is it like this? Tianzong is still alive? Then who is he? The old monsters didn't know about Tianzong's situation and were all in a mess. At the same time, Tianzong stood proudly in the middle of the feather. When he opened and closed his eyes, everything was annihilated. He looked at Shengtian and Qingsong and said mockingly, Fight with all your might. Let me experience how strong this body is and how deep its potential is. Huh? You haven't returned? Since you haven't returned, how can you fight with us? If we fight with all our might, you'll turn into dust. And Shengtian and Qingsong were very confident. The fear in their eyes disappeared. Then, the two of them joined forces and charged toward Tianzong. Tianzong was fearless. After he gained sentience, he was brutal and seemed to live only to kill. In his eyes, it was either to die in battle or to survive. Let's try this Emperor's Vine first, Tianzong shouted. He raised his hand, and the Emperor's Vine appeared. As for the Emperor's Vine summoned by Tianzong, it was like a world tree. The moment it manifested, it seemed to stand between the heavens and the earth. Its branches shimmered with the light of the great Tao, and as its leaves swayed, it was as if worlds were floating within. Buzz! At this moment, a majestic force of the world erupted. It was invisible and colorless, but it sent Shengtian flying. However, the next moment, Qingsong rushed over and swept out a blood-stained spear in his hand. He cut the Emperor's Vine in half and forced it back into Tianzong's body. As expected of the Emperor's Vine, it has the potential to evolve into a world tree. Tianzong praised. Then he waved his hand, and a long cry broke through the clouds. Screech! The immortal bird spread its wings and burned fiercely. This part of the starry sky turned into a sea of fire. Even Qingsong was forced to retreat. You're just a monster after gaining sentience. How dare you try to control me? The immortal bird's soul was very spiritual. After glaring at Tianzong, it returned to the depths of Jiang Chen's soul. Interesting. If this Tao soul evolves again, all the birds in the world will have to bow down to it. Tianzong was not angry. Instead, he praised it. Finally, Tianzong's body burned with green flames, and a green lamp appeared above his head. Chapter 1342. The ever-changing heavenly lamp appeared. Its light was not strong, but it lit up the sky. Even from hundreds of millions of miles away, one could see the green light covering the sky. Why is the lamp bearer imprisoned? Tianzong was surprised. He controlled Jiang Chen's body and could sense the lamp bearer's situation. Then he pointed his finger, and a divine power entered the depths of the lamp bearer's soul. It broke the shackles binding the lamp bearer. Boom! At this moment, the ever-changing heavenly lamp's light suddenly surged. At the same time, the lamp bearer appeared and held the ever-changing heavenly lamp in his hand. How do I use this thing? Is this how I use it? Tianzong frowned. He injected his divine power and dharma into the ever-changing heavenly lamp and the lamp bearer. A dazzling sword light appeared. The sword light shone in all directions. Heaven and earth shook, and the Tao collapsed. And Shengtian and Qingcong saw this, and their eyes were filled with fear. They had seen the ever-changing heavenly lamp in prehistory and knew how terrifying the power of the ever-changing heavenly cut was. However, they did not expect this Taoist soul to appear again after so many years. Moreover, Tianzong used it with a power that was far more powerful than Jiang Chen's. Go! Tianzong shouted. With a flick of his finger, the sword light shot out like a cold light covered with chaotic colors. The void was cut open and the Tao Dharma was cut open. It was so fast that Shengtian and Qingcong could not react in time. Boom! Boom! With two explosions, the sword light cut open Shengtian and Qingcong's protective divine power and dharma, then pierced through them and cut them in half. The power is not as terrifying as we thought. Fortunately, if this was in prehistory, we would have been killed by this sword. Although Shengtian and Qingcong were cut in half, they were very glad. They knew the power of the prehistoric Jiang Chen when he used the ever-changing heavenly cut. Even a genuine immortal would not dare to take it head-on. At this moment, the two of them were rapidly reconstructing their bodies. Then, they surrounded Tianzong from the front and back. They didn't retreat. At this point in the battle, there were only two outcomes for them. Either they completely obliterated Jiang Chen today, or both of them would be killed. You've reincarnated 10 times, but in the end, you still can't return. Killing you today can be considered as ending a chessboard of several eras. You shouldn't have come here. You haven't returned. So how can you fight against us? Shengtian and Qingcong were full of confidence at this moment, but they did not underestimate their enemy too much. They knew that killing Jiang Chen was extremely difficult. This was going to be a bloody battle. As expected of the original body, his potential is far greater than mine. Tianzong completely ignored Shengtian and Qingcong. He frowned as greed flashed in his eyes. He wanted to completely replace Jiang Chen and suppress Jiang Chen's soul and will. However, after a few breaths, he shook his head and sighed. He knew that this was impossible. The bond between him and Jiang Chen was too deep. Unless he found a special way, he could not replace Jiang Chen. Most importantly, if Jiang Chen died, he would die with him. After all, the two of them had the same origin. I originally planned to save these old monsters and then test the potential of the original body before leaving. But since you want to kill me, then I naturally can't let you do as you wish. Tianzong said softly. As his voice fell, he pointed at his forehead. He knew that Jiang Chen was still conscious and could see everything in front of him. What do you say? You wanted to take action and annihilate these two? Tianzong asked. However, although he asked the question, Jiang Chen could not answer. However, Jiang Chen's soul was trembling. He seemed to be very excited, as if he had agreed to Tianzong's request. Then kill. You think I'm afraid of you? Today, two prehistoric almighties of the red spider lilies can't kill a piece of trash like you who hasn't returned yet. At this moment, The three of them roared in unison. Divine power and precepts erupted from their bodies, and they directly activated their domains. Boom! In an instant, there was a series of explosions. The three of them had used almost all their strength. All kinds of secret techniques were displayed, and even more terrifying divine powers were unleashed. A clock appeared, and the hour hand turned slowly. Under Tianzong's control, the power of time became more and more terrifying. He froze Shengtian in place and then punched out, directly shattering Shengtian's physical body. However, before Tianzong could suppress Shengtian's soul, Qingtsong rushed over. A thunderbolt fell from his hand, accompanied by a violent aura, and with it, he cut off one of Tianzong's arms. Blood spurted out like divine light. Tianzong did not care about the broken arm. He suddenly turned around, and the power of time erupted again. Shengtian, save me! And Qingtsong was shocked and shouted at the last moment. His eyes were full of fear. Kill! However, before Shengtian could come over, Tianzong roared angrily and used 1,000 transformations heaven slash again, cutting Qingtsong in half. However, Qingtsong was too powerful and had an extremely deep foundation. After suffering such a serious injury, he was still alive. His soul was cut in half, but it healed in an instant. Then his physical body was rebuilt, and he fought with Tianzong again. At the same time, Shengtian stood in the distance, his hands constantly forming seals. A terrifying and inexplicable aura erupted. He was using a forbidden technique. Oh, sh*t. I can't fight them all, Tianzong muttered. It seemed easy, but it was actually very strenuous. Whether it was in Shengtian or in Qingtsong, they were too powerful. They were both people who had survived from prehistoric times. Moreover, the two of them were in their prime, and those old monsters could not compare to them. Take him away. Leave Shengtian to us. At this moment, those old monsters who were still alive rushed in and went straight for Shengtian. They had already burned their origin power, so they could not live for long. It was as if fireworks had risen to the highest point in the sky and were about to explode. These old monsters wanted to use the last moment of their lives to release the most brilliant light of their lives. Our era is over. It's difficult to recover to the peak even if we sublimate. Enough! This life burn! The old monsters roared and rushed in front of Shengtian. Then, they all self-destructed. Boom! Boom! Just like the fireworks, the divine light turned into a tornado and completely drowned Shengtian. However, after a dozen breaths, when the afterglow of the self-destruction dissipated, a drop of essence blood flashed in the void. Then, the essence blood exploded, and Shengtian appeared. He was still alive. However, at this moment his aura was dispirited, and his face was pale. Even the divine Tao law in his body had become unstable. Obviously, he was severely injured. I underestimated them. I almost couldn't make it. And Shengtian whispered, his eyes flashing coldly. He stared at Tianzong and said, "Who else can help you now?" Chapter 1343. And Shengtian had almost died, but he had survived. Although he was weak and seriously injured, he was still arrogant and confident. After all, he wasn't the only one here. And Qingtsong was stronger than him. In their eyes, no matter how strong Tianzong was, he couldn't beat the two of them. This body isn't yours after all. You can't use its full power. And Qingtsong said coldly, "I told you to back off, but you didn't. Now you don't have the chance. If I kill you today, the 10 reincarnations will be nothing." And Shengtian said, "In this world, there were many people who knew that Jiangchun had reincarnated 10 times, and many wanted to kill Jiangchun, fearing that he would succeed in his 10th reincarnation. Among those who wanted to kill Jiangchun was the Red Spider Lily clan. However, the 3 realms of Yin and Yang hadn't happened yet, and the Dark Blood era hadn't broken out yet. The vanguard of the 3 realms of Yang hadn't attacked either. As a result, many prehistoric almighty experts had been protecting Jiangchun secretly. But now, Those prehistoric almighties were either dead or gone. No one could protect Jiang Chun. Now was the best time to kill Jiang Chun. Let me tell you something. You might not believe me. Tianzong's expression was strange, his body trembling, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. He said with difficulty, I can't control this body. Oh, what do you mean? And Sheng Tian and Qing Song were stunned, but they did see that something was wrong with Tianzong. At the same time, in the depths of Jiang Chen's soul, terrifying anger erupted, and a murderous aura rushed into the sky like a black river, swirling around Jiang Chun. He is really angry. Something terrible seems to be coming out from the depths of his soul. Tianzong wanted to control Jiang Chen's body, but it was getting harder and harder. A few seconds after he said this, Tianzong was forced out of his body by Jiang Chun. Boom! In the next moment, an explosive sound rang out from Jiang Chen's body. Baleful energy soared into the heavens, and a pair of eyes that seemed to come from an ancient time and space slowly opened behind Jiang Chun. At the same time, two phantoms appeared on Jiang Chen's body. Upon closer inspection, these two phantoms looked exactly the same as Jiang Chun. One was shrouded in starlight that seemed to originate from the boundless sea of stars, and its entire body was made of stars. The other was enveloped by a green light, as if it had melted into the chaos. Heaven sect? Huh? You've actually gained sentience in this life? At this moment, the illusory figure that seemed to be cast by stars laughed a few times, seemingly very excited. Hearing this, Tianzong stared at the illusory figure with fear in his eyes. Others might not know the identity of this phantom, but he was very clear about it. This person was one of Jiang Chen's reincarnations, Heavenly Star. Heavenly Star? How are you still alive? And Sheng Tian and Qing Song exclaimed in shock. In their memories, Heavenly Star was already dead. But now, this guy had actually turned into a phantom and appeared on Jiang Chen's body. Is it because my era is too far away? Does no one remember me anymore? At this moment, the illusory figure that seemed to be shrouded in chaos slowly opened its mouth, its voice carrying a trace of displeasure and resentment. You are? This guy? Is it really chaos that shrouds his body? And Sheng Tian and Qing Song were shocked. They probed the wisps of green light, but the moment their divine senses came into contact with the green light, they were instantly swallowed up. Looks like I'm not needed here, Tianzong said softly. The moment he heard the voice of the green phantom, he knew the other party's identity. A curtain of pearls in the eternal sky, singing from dawn to dusk and wine to fall from the blue sky. This person was Tianqing. Tianzong didn't expect that in Jiang Chen's several incarnations, two of the three strongest reincarnations had actually turned into phantoms and appeared. Could this be a trap set up by Jiang Chen's first reincarnation? You guys are really something. Why did you have to provoke him? According to the time, we shouldn't have appeared yet, Heavenly Star said disapprovingly. Heaven Star said snappily, the people of the Red Spider Lily clan are also brainless. You guys don't really think that you can kill him, right? A bunch of ignorant people. He's reincarnated 10 times. If he can be killed so easily, then wouldn't our efforts have been in vain? Tianqing mocked. Run! Retreat! At this moment, and Sheng Tian and Qing Song's faces were already pale. They knew the strength of Heavenly Star and Tianqing. Even if they were just phantoms now, they weren't people they could deal with. Moreover, and Sheng Tian was seriously injured and there was still Tianzong beside him. If they fought this battle, they had no chance of winning. Let's not talk anymore. Let him play by himself. We'll pretend that nothing happened. If it weren't for a mistake in the reincarnation, we would have returned long ago, Tianqing and Heavenly Star said. Then, the phantoms disappeared, but Jiang Chen's aura skyrocketed. They lent their strength to Jiang Chun, allowing his cultivation to erupt to the peak at this moment. At this moment, Jiang Chun came to his senses. He knew that he was absent-minded just now, but he still remembered that those old monsters had self-destructed for him. His eyes burned with anger, and his murderous aura was violent. There were even grains of pink sand swirling around him. "Kill!" Jiang Chun shouted angrily. He flew into a rage. He dashed out and stopped in Xingtian in an instant. Then, with a wave of his hand, a green sword beam burst forth and directly cut Xingtian in half. And Xingtian was very strong. Even if he was seriously injured, he instantly reconstructed his physical body. However, Xingtian's eyes were filled with fear. He stared at Jiang Chun in front of him, as if he was looking at him from prehistoric times, overlooking the world, standing at the peak. The battle intent in his heart was gone. There was only one thought in Xingtian's mind now, and that was to survive. However, before he could escape, a stretch of pink sand fell and drowned him. And Xingtian was stunned for a moment and prepared to defend himself. However, after a few breaths, he was puzzled because the sand did not harm him at all. "What is this?" Tianzong, who was far away, was also confused. The pink sand, no matter how he looked at it, did not feel out of place. However, after a few breaths, and Xingtian's face turned red, and a whimper came out of his mouth, an old monster who had lived for several generations, and a man at that, in the face of life and death, actually panted. "This, what the F asterisk CK? What is this thing? A special aphrodisiac?" Tianzong's eyes widened. He could not believe that Jiang Chun in this life had such a thing in his hands. And Qing-sang, save me? At this moment, and Xingtian's body was weak, and the fire in his body was ignited. Even his cry for help seemed a little strange. Chapter 1344. Shengshan was asking for help, but Qing-sang ignored him and directly escaped into the void. And Qing-sang was really scared, especially after he had learned that Jiang Chun had merged with Tianqing's and Tianxing's bodies, and that their consciousnesses were still there. He knew that this day's fight couldn't go on, no matter what. If the sacred ground was destroyed, then so be it. If Shengshan died, then so be it. He and Qing-sang did not want to die. "Kill!" At that moment, Jiang Chun roared, and the 10,000 transformations heavenly slash fell again, cutting Shengshan's soul in half. Then, it was drowned by the sand and dust until it disappeared, leaving not even a trace of ashes. Not far away, Tianzong was shocked. He stared at the sand and thought, Jiang Chun in this life has mastered another kind of divine power. At first glance, this kind of divine power seemed ordinary and a little dirty. But thinking about it carefully, this kind of divine power was very terrifying. It could affect a person's mind and arouse their desires, just like disturbing others' minds. If this kind of power was cultivated, it might become Jiang Chun's killing weapon in the future. You still want to run? A life for a life. At that moment, Jiang Chun roared again. He tore through the void and chased after Qing-sang. Jiang Chun's speed was extremely fast. After all, he had the power of Tianqing and Tianxing, and his cultivation had broken through to the extraordinaire level. In just a dozen breaths' time, Jiang Chun traveled from one star zone to another. In the end, he intercepted Qing-sang in a desolate and dark star zone. No, to be precise, Qing-sang stopped himself. He stood in the dark star domain with a gloomy expression. The murderous intent in his eyes soared and turned into a substantial gust of wind. "Do you know where this is?" Qing-sang said coldly. "How dare you chase after me? If you don't die today, I won't be at ease," Jiang Chun said in a cold voice. Although he had lost his memory, seeing those old monsters die still stirred the deepest part of his soul. Jiang Chun almost lost his mind. He was so angry that he almost lost his mind. "This is the mountain gate of my red spider lily." Qing-sang raised his eyebrows. His previous fear was swept away. After coming here, he was very confident and fearless. As his voice fell, strands of light appeared in the pitch-black star field. Upon closer inspection, they were bewitching flowers. These flowers took root in the void and merged into the darkness, absorbing the essence of the great Tao. Normally, these flowers would not appear. Ordinary people who passed by would not notice them at all. But now, with Song's arrival, this place was revived, and the resurrection lilies were in full bloom. You killed Tian? Right at this moment, an aged yet extremely domineering voice resounded from the depths of this pitch-black star region. Immediately after, a huge red spider lily bloomed, and a middle-aged man in purple robes walked out from the flower bud. It only took him one step to reach Song's side. And Tianzong followed. When he saw this middle-aged man, his expression changed drastically. He even secretly sent a voice transmission to Jiang Chun, telling him to leave this place quickly. Jiang Chen's memories were gone, so he did not know how terrifying was. In prehistoric times, Chi's combat strength was ranked in the top 10. Back then, those cultivators were so powerful that there was no lack of perfected immortals. And in that most resplendent era, the fact that Chi could enter the top 10 was enough to prove his strength. Tianzong did not expect the Red Spider Lily's foundation to be so deep. One of the top 10 mighty figures in prehistoric times had actually survived until now and was in peak condition. This was too terrifying. I don't care who you are. He must die today. Jiang Chen stared at Song. Just as he had said before, he would not be at ease if Song did not die today. What a joke. I didn't fear you in prehistoric times, let alone now. And Chi said disdainfully, you're not the first reincarnation. You don't have the power to overturn the world. Is that so? Looks like we're not as good as the first reincarnation. At this moment, Tianqing and Tianxing's phantoms appeared again. This time, Jiang Chun remained conscious. His heart throbbed. He could sense that Tianqing and Tianxing's power was erupting and pouring into his body. But at the same time, Tianqing and Tianxing's consciousness was gradually dissipating. They were also sublimating to the extreme, fusing their last bit of power into Jiang Chen's body. Our consciousness should have disappeared. After all, our bodies have already fused with you. The mission can be considered completed. Tianqing smiled and said, we are you, and you are us. Even if our consciousness has disappeared, we are still here in the end. As long as you are alive, we are alive. Tianqing grinned and then pointed at Song. Starlight shone in his eyes as he shouted, kill. There is nothing to fear. As soon as he finished speaking, Tianqing and Tianxing's consciousness completely disappeared. The aura that Jiang Chen emitted had reached the half-immortal realm. With just a bit more power, perhaps Jiang Chen could break through the shackles and reach the true immortal realm. He looked at Tianzong as if asking if he could lend his power to him. Tianzong shook his head. He didn't want to lend his power to Jiang Chen. If Jiang Chen really broke through to the true immortal realm and destroyed his consciousness, then wouldn't he have channeled his spirit for nothing? What are you afraid of? Tianxing already said that we can just kill. There is nothing to fear. Tianzong said angrily. Isn't it good to be a little more confident? Forget it, I don't want you. Jiang Chun pursed his lips. Then his eyes narrowed. He pointed at Song and looked at Chi. Today, I will kill him. If you dare to stop me, I will kill you too. Ha, what a joke. And she laughed wildly and said, even in prehistory, not many people dare to talk to me like this. Today there is. Remember, I said this. Jiang Chen said coldly. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Jiang Chun dashing out. A chime of a bell echoed over his head. From the moment he summoned the clock until now, the clock hand had already turned to 12 o'clock. At this moment, Jiang Chen's control of time reached its strongest state. Suppress. At this moment, Jiang Chen shouted loudly. Even though he hadn't reached them yet, his time power had already erupted, and he instantly confined Chi and Song. Then, under Chi's shocked and furious gaze, Jiang Chen charged in front of Song and slashed down with 1,000 transformations heavenly slash, splitting Song in half right in front of Chi. How dare you? Chi was very powerful. He was the first to break free from the time imprisonment and hurriedly tried to save Song. However, before he could do anything, a pink sand burst out and drowned him. At the same time, Jiang Chun waved his hand, and the Emperor Vine, with raging flames, nailed in Qing Song's soul in the void. Chapter 1345. Jiang Chun was too powerful. He ignored In Chi's attack and nailed in Qing Song's soul into the void. Then, Jiang Chun waved his hand again, and Qing Song's soul exploded and dissipated like starlight in the sky. A prehistoric giant had ended. Boom! However, at this moment, In Chi's attack had already reached him. His fist was as bright as the sun, and it bombarded Jiang Chun's back. Puff! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Jiang Chun turned around abruptly. The three Tao souls appeared beside him. This place was like a sea of holy light and was filled with divine light. And Qing Song is dead. What's the use of your attack? Moreover, I am not afraid of you at all. Jiang Chun shouted angrily. The Emperor's vines shackled In Chi like chains. The immortal fire burned and drowned In Chi. Then the 10,000 transformations heavenly slash was formed, and the power of time confined In Chi. No one dared to talk to me like this, even in prehistoric times, let alone now. And Chi was very powerful. As his body shook, his Taoist power burned, and he broke free from the power of time instantly. He clenched his fist and punched out, breaking the Emperor's vines. Then he stomped his foot and extinguished the immortal fire. Swoosh! With a whooshing sound, he came up to Jiang Chun in an instant. Then he threw a punch at Jiang Chun. He punched the top of Jiang Chun's head with all his might. At this moment, Jiang Chun felt like his body was going to explode. If he hadn't been protected by the lamp bearer, that punch would have been enough to kill him. And Chi is different from In Qing Song and In Xing Tian. He is one of the patriarchs of the Red Spider Lily clan. Tianzong reminded him from afar. Run while you still have a chance. Why should I be afraid of him? Jiang Chun stabilized his body. His expression was cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. However, after he finished speaking, he directly tore open space and entered it. In a few breaths of time, he was nowhere to be seen. This sudden escape caught In Chi off guard, and he was unable to react in time. This, after a few breaths of time, and Chi wanted to give chase, but he couldn't sense Jiang Chun's aura anymore. Is this still the same man from back then? He said that he wanted to fight, but in the end, he ran away. Where's your integrity? And Chi's expression was extremely strange. One had to know that in prehistoric times, although In Chi had not met Jiang Chun's first life, they had met his other lives. In those lifetimes, each of them was a top-notch expert, and they were incomparably arrogant. Even if they died in battle, they would not take a step back. But in this life, what a king, shameless person. That was close. At this moment, Jiang Chun was already billions of miles away. He was lying on a meteorite, panting heavily. He panted heavily and felt a lingering fear in his heart. Because as they fought just now, Tianqing and Tianxing's strength began to decline. If the battle continued, Jiang Chun would undoubtedly die. Killing In Qing Song and In Xing Tian isn't a loss, Jiang Chun said softly, but he was immediately displeased. The sacred ground was still there, and he didn't have the ability to destroy it for the time being. Moreover, after this incident, the Red Spider Lilies would definitely be angry. There might even be a few prehistoric giants like In Chi coming out. At that time, Jiang Chun's situation would be dangerous. Sigh. If I didn't chase after In Qing Song just now, I would have destroyed the sacred ground first. Jiang Chun regretted. He had been blinded by anger just now, and now that he thought about it, after another dozen breaths of time, Tianqing and Tianxing's strength completely disappeared. Jiang Chun seemed to have overdrawn his strength. His face instantly turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he fainted and drifted in the starry sky with the meteorite. After an unknown period of time, when Jiang Chun woke up, his injuries had already healed. It's time to go back. I'm afraid Bai Fengyu and the others will be worried about me after coming out and making such a ruckus, Jiang Chun muttered. After getting up and finding the direction, he stepped into the void. A day later, when Jiang Chun walked out of the void and came to a city, He was about to use the teleportation formation in the city when he heard an important piece of news. The sacred ground had been destroyed. Now, the entire great wide world was in an uproar. Just 3 days ago, the sacred ground had been destroyed. This could be considered the biggest thing in this era so far. Fellow Taoist, who destroyed the sacred ground? Jiang Chun had changed his appearance. He was worried that the red spider lilies would chase after him. At this moment, he pulled a man in the city and asked curiously, "I heard that it was a group of Jiang Chen's subordinates and a few of his disciples." The man said, "Holy physique Jiang Lu, tyrant Wakako, ancient spirit Xiao Qingyi, and those few great virtues. It was a battle that happened too quickly. The evil race, the monster race, all the forces that they could use were used. Then, for some reason, the sacred ground didn't have any extraordinaries guarding it. In the end, the sacred ground was destroyed." Hearing this, Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He froze in place and didn't react for a long time. These guys, did they guess what I was going to do? Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. He could probably guess what Jiang Lu and the others were going to do. Jiang Chun was also secretly glad that he had killed in Xingtian and in Qingshan before. Otherwise, if Jiang Lu and the others attacked the sacred ground, they would undoubtedly be courting death. This era is changing. The sacred ground has been destroyed. Now, no one dares to act rashly, let alone offend Jiang Chun and the others. The man sighed and said, "I really didn't expect that a group of people from the Six Realms would grow up. It's the right time and place," Jiang Chun muttered. If it wasn't for the Dark Blood era that was about to erupt, if all the extraordinaries hadn't gone to resist the vanguard of the Yang Three Realms, how could Jiang Chun and the others have risen? Not to mention destroying the sacred ground. All of this had to be said to be the right time and place. And now, Jiang Lu and the others had destroyed the sacred ground, which was equivalent to replacing the sacred ground's position in the boundless world. Just today, many forces had already contacted Jiang Lu and the others, wanting to join them. Jiang Chun and the others have too many forces supporting them. Just the demon race and the evil race are enough for them to do whatever they want in this era. The man said, "In addition, the Supreme Heavenly Palace has also spoken today. Whoever dares to touch Jiang Chun is equivalent to declaring war with the Supreme Heavenly Palace." Jiang Chun was stunned when he heard this. He hadn't contacted the Supreme Heavenly Palace for a long time. Ever since Hong Yun went to resist the vanguard of the Yang Three Realms, he seemed to have lost contact with the Supreme Heavenly Palace. But he didn't expect the Supreme Heavenly Palace to actually speak. Could it be that the Supreme Heavenly Palace knows about the matter between me and the Red Spider Lily clan? Now that they have announced it to the world, are they going to help me block the Red Spider Lily clan? Jiang Chun guessed. "Fellow Taoist, let me ask you something else." Jiang Chun suddenly thought of something and asked, "Do you know how to get to the top of the sky?" Chapter 1346. Jiang Chun had always remembered what Longmai had said. He wanted to go to the top of the sky to light up the eternal lamp. However, after coming out of the misty forest, Jiang Chun had encountered too many things and had forgotten about the top of the sky for a while. Now that the sacred ground had been destroyed and the Supreme Heavenly Palace had stepped forward to protect him and fight against the Hurricane Lily clan, Jiang Chun was finally free and could go to the top of the sky to take a look. The top of the sky? I've heard of it, but I'm not sure where exactly it is. The man shook his head and then reminded, "However, the black market should know. After all, the black market has a lot of information and secrets." When Jiang Chun heard this, he couldn't help but secretly curse himself for being foolish. He had the black market as an intelligence network behind him, so why was he still asking for information here? After that, Jiang Chun left and went to the black market's headquarters through the teleportation array in the ancient city. Now, the three giants of the black market were nowhere to be found. No one knew if they had gone to the front line to participate in the war or to conquer the three realms. As the number one wage earner in the black market, Jiang Chun could be said to be the actual controller of the black market now. Of course, there might be people who were dissatisfied with Jiang Chun before, But after Zhang Lu and the others destroyed the sacred ground, there were probably not many in the black market who dared to be dissatisfied with him. Moreover, Jiang Chun was very decisive this time and revealed his identity in the black market. Now, there was no one in the black market who was dissatisfied with him. The top of the sky is in the depths of the Black River in the Sea of Stars. That was an ancient battlefield where too many mighty figures died. At this moment, an old man in the black market took out a map and pointed to the dark place on the map. Even if the mighty figures in prehistory died, the power in their bodies would remain for several eras. Too many mighty figures died in that battle, and too much power remained, causing the Black River in the Sea of Stars to become a forbidden area. There are violent powers everywhere. If ordinary people were to enter rashly, they would be torn apart by those violent powers. When Jiang Chun heard this, he didn't mind. With his current physical body, as long as he was a little careful, there wouldn't be any major problems. Where are the three magnates of the black market? Jiang Chun asked again. I don't know where the three lords went, the old man said. He had been in the black market for a long time and could be considered a trusted aide of the three big shots of the black market. However, the whereabouts of the three giants of the black market were unknown to the entire Great Thousand World, let alone the black market. After all, the three of them were too mysterious. Their true identities were unknown, and no one knew who they were. Go and gather information about the vanguard of the Yang Three Realms. I'll be back after making a trip to Heaven's Summit. In the end, Jiang Chun left again. He didn't stay for long. After obtaining the coordinates of the summit of the sky, he rushed there at top speed. He had a feeling that the great wide world was going to experience the most terrifying disaster since ancient times. In this disaster, the slightest carelessness could cause the entire greater thousand worlds to collapse. Jiang Chun kept moving forward according to the coordinates. 3 days later, he arrived in the vicinity of a black star field. Looking around, the star field here was the same as the star field of the red spider lily. Everywhere was black. The light emitted by the stars seemed to be covered by an invisible hand. However, compared to the star field of the red spider lily, the darkness here was even more frightening. It seemed to be able to swallow everything. Before stepping into this star field, Jiang Chun heard a shocking explosion coming from the star field. There were also chaotic laws colliding. Occasionally, he could see a beam of lightning suddenly appearing and disappearing in an instant. All of this was caused by the collision of the energy left behind by the prehistoric almighties after their deaths. Can I go in? At this moment, Jiang Chun stood outside the star field and whispered, You should be able to. The three of us will protect you. As long as you don't encounter anything special, it'll be fine, the undying bird said. It was the most spiritual of Jiang Chun's three Tao souls. As for the Emperor's Vine and the ever-changing heavenly lamp, they had not yet developed a clear consciousness and could not communicate with Jiang Chun. Sometimes, Jiang Chun wondered why only the undying bird Tao soul had developed a complete and clear consciousness. Was there a secret? And the lamp-bearer was imprisoned by the three strands of chaotic qi. What was going on? Previously, when the Tianzong possessed him, the lamp-bearer was released and the shackles on him were shaken off. However, at that moment, Jiang Chun saw that the lamp-bearer had been confined again. Could it be that the lamp-bearer had a grudge against the three strands of chaotic qi? Let's go in. After several breaths, Jiang Chun didn't bother to think too much about it, and his three doctrine souls showed up at the same time to strengthen his body. His whole body was shrouded in divine light, and he seemed like a monarch who was about to leave the world. When Jiang Chun took a step forward and entered the Black River, his expression changed slightly. He could feel many berserk and chaotic worldly laws colliding with each other in the surroundings. The power from the collision of these laws was comparable to that of a peak emperor. And this was only the outermost region of the Black Sea Galaxy. If we go to the deepest part, will the chaotic laws be even more terrifying? Jiang Chun was shocked and suddenly lost confidence in his three Tao souls. Even the undying bird was a little scared. It said weakly, Should we go back? Since we are already here, why should we go back? Let's go in and take a look. We can retreat if we can't, Jiang Chen said. Then, Jiang Chen moved forward slowly. He was very careful as he was afraid that he would be hit by one of the chaotic laws. Moving forward in the darkness, there was no concept of time. After a long time, Jiang Chen's body shook. He felt that the chaotic laws around him were getting stronger and stronger. He had no choice but to set up arrays and barriers around him. With the help of the 3 Tao souls, he could barely move forward. After walking for a long time, when he took the last step, the darkness in front of him suddenly disappeared. Jiang Chen was stunned. It was as if he had traveled to another world. Looking around, there was a dazzling radiance in front of him. Some laws turned into giants and soared in the starry sky. There were also chaotic laws entangled together like a taodai that could swallow the world. At the end of this resplendent starry sky, there was a large black river. It was unknown where it started and where it ended, but it flowed through the intersection of space and time. That was the Black River, the place where the peak of the sky was located. This is not good. Jiang Chen frowned. He stood where he was and did not dare to move at all. Although this place was bright and seemed gentle, the collision of the laws here was more terrifying than the darkness, especially the chaotic laws that took form. They seemed to have a wisp of the prehistoric Almighty's will. When the laws collided, there was an explosion of Tao skills. If they were hit, not to mention the 3 Tao souls, even Jiang Chen would be turned into ashes. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression changed. A wisp of chaotic qi came out of his body, and it rushed toward the nearest chaotic laws that took form. Chapter 1347. The wisp of chaos qi was like a taodai as it pounced on the nearest chaos law and swallowed it. Jiang Chen was shocked. He knew that the chaos qi was very special and strange. It had an indescribable power. However, the chaos law here was left behind by a prehistoric almighty after his death. Its power was so terrifying that even a half-immortal would be wary of it. But now, it was directly swallowed by a wisp of chaos qi. The most important thing was that after the wisp of chaos qi swallowed the chaos law, it was unharmed. Then, it rushed toward another chaos law. Jiang Chen was stunned on the spot. He had no idea what was going on. However, he soon came to his senses and followed behind the wisp of chaotic qi, advancing forward without any hindrance. That's strange. Why are the other 2 wisps of chaos qi not moving? Jiang Chen was puzzled. There were a total of 3 wisps of chaos qi in his body. Now, facing the chaos law, only 1 wisp of chaos qi floated out of his body. The other 2 wisps of chaos qi did not seem to be interested in the chaos law here. Could it be that the chaos qi was also divided into different categories? Is it helping me open a path or nourishing me? After half an hour, Jiang Chen was getting closer and closer to the Black River. At the same time, the wisp of chaos qi had grown from the size of a thumb to the size of an arm. However, it was strange. Other than the fact that the wisp of chaos qi was a little thicker, there was nothing special about it. Could it be that I didn't eat enough? Jiang Chen muttered. Just like that, the wisp of chaos qi kept swallowing the chaos law around it. Jiang Chen followed closely behind. In the sea of stars, he meandered toward the Black River. Of course, it was not up to Jiang Chen to decide whether he could enter the Black River quickly. It depended on where the chaos qi went. After all, with Jiang Chen's strength, it was impossible for him to reach the Black River. He could only walk safely by following the chaos qi. Another 2 hours passed, and this time, the primal chaos qi finally reached the side of the Black River. And Jiang Chen finally arrived at the Black River. There was no longer any law of chaos in this place. The surroundings were silent, as if there was some kind of power that isolated all the law of chaos outside. It was impossible to tell how long the Black River was. It seemed to have appeared from the depths of the endless void and then disappeared into the depths of the endless void. This huge river seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, and its origin was unknown. And now, as soon as the primal chaos qi arrived at this place, It actually entered the Black River. Jiang Chun was startled. He looked at the Black River. It was pitch black below, but there was an indescribable aura emerging. This type of aura was extremely special, extremely obscure, as if the great Tao of the heavens merged together, able to melt all things. Will the chaotic aura be able to return? Jiang Chen asked softly. But after a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen's worry disappeared. This was because the water level of the river was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The water level continued to fall. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the entire Black River had disappeared. Upon closer inspection, there were corpses and bones everywhere on the Black Riverbed. There were also broken weapons and fragments of a world that had collapsed. This place was like a mass grave, where some of the most powerful beings from prehistory were buried. However, at this moment, there was one more thing on the Black Riverbed, and that was Jiang Chen's wisp of chaotic energy. Upon closer inspection, the chaotic aura had become extremely thick and long. It looked like a python that was more than 10 meters long. It lay quietly on the riverbed, as if digesting what it had just swallowed. This guy really can eat and drink. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. He did not know why the chaotic aura was like this. Then, Jiang Chen's eyes shone brightly as he scanned the Black River. But other than the things he had seen before, he did not see the so-called eternal lamp. Where is the eternal lamp? Jiang Chen was puzzled. He thought that the dragon vein would not lie to him. But now, this place was empty. Even the river water had disappeared. But he did not see the eternal lamp. Could it be that the eternal lamp had been taken away by someone? The future generations cannot become immortals. Without the cultivation of a true immortal, no one can enter this place. Jiang Chen whispered. If he did not have the chaotic aura, he would not have been able to come to the Black River. Then, the idea that the eternal lamp had been taken away by someone else was basically impossible. But the question was, where was the eternal lamp? Could it have been swallowed? After more than 10 breaths had passed, Jiang Chen looked at the vigorous primal chaos energy with an odd expression, and he muttered in confusion. Plop! As soon as he finished speaking, a muffled sound came from the chaotic aura. Then, a very simple and ordinary bronze lamp fell from his body. At this moment, Jiang Chen was really confused. This thing was really the eternal lamp? The eternal lamp that he had been looking for so long was really swallowed by the chaotic aura? After picking up the bronze lamp, Jiang Chen held it in his hand and studied it carefully. But he did not find anything special about it. In fact, this bronze lamp did not even have a wick. If there was no wick, how could it be lit? Is it broken? Jiang Chen said in a low voice. While he was feeling puzzled, some booming sounds suddenly came from under the riverbed. At this moment, the riverbed cracked and a huge stone tablet slowly rose from the bottom of the riverbed. The stone tablet was very complete. There was not a single crack on it. It was snow white and had no trace of impurities. There were a few lines of words written on the stone tablet. Jiang Chen leaned forward to take a look. His heart skipped a beat. Bearing the mandate of heaven, Yang suppressing immortal opportunity. These words revealed a lot of information. Just from the literal meaning, this stone tablet seemed to be suppressing something. Yang suppressing immortal opportunity. Could this stone tablet be suppressing the path to immortality in the Yang world? Jiang Chen was shocked. If that was the case, then the importance of this stone tablet was self-evident. What moved Jiang Chen the most was that the words myriad transformations were written at the bottom of the stone tablet. Although Jiang Chen had forgotten the memories of his previous lives, he could not help but suspect that one of his lives was myriad transformations. However, there was too little information about myriad transformations. Jiang Chen had only seen it in the ancient ruins of the godless continent. All right, where is my drop of blood essence? Suddenly, Jiang Chen thought of something. Back in the ancient ruins, he had obtained a drop of myriad transformations blood essence. However, he had gone through so many things that he had almost forgotten about this drop of blood essence. Then, Jiang Chen looked into his body and quickly found this drop of blood essence in the depths of his soul. It floated quietly in the depths of his soul. It was dim and lightless, as if it was covered in dust. Jiang Chen injected a drop of divine power into it. Suddenly, the blood essence bloomed with divine light, and a terrifying will erupted from the blood essence. Chapter 1348. His blood essence seemed to be burning, and a terrifying pressure burst out. An indescribable aura filled the air. It was as if there was a king in the blood essence that was about to wake up. It was too terrifying. Jiang Chen had never known that the blood essence had such power. However, after a few breaths, the strange scene in the blood essence disappeared. It became dark again, as if it was covered with a layer of dust. Then, no matter how Jiang Chen tried to activate it, the blood essence did not change at all. What's going on? Did I open it the wrong way? Jiang Chen was puzzled. After looking at it carefully, he left the spiritual world. The most important thing now was to find out the secret of the ancient words on the stone tablet. As for the lamp, Jiang Chen did not intend to light it up. Not to mention that the lamp did not have a wick now. He did not know what kind of creatures it would attract after it was lit up. I have to read the ancient books. Otherwise, I can't just light it up casually, Jiang Chen said softly. Then Jiang Chen searched around the Black River again. He didn't find anything special, so he decided to leave. However, when he came in, he relied on the chaotic chi. Now, the chaotic chi was lying on the riverbed as if it was hibernating. It did not move at all. Looking at the road he came from, it was full of the chaotic chi. If there was no chaotic chi to open the way, Jiang Chen would not be able to get out. Hey, can you hear me? I'm leaving. You should get up quickly. Jiang Chen picked up a stone and threw it at the wisp of chaotic energy. Bang! However, to his surprise, an explosion came from the primal chaos energy. Then it exploded, and a living creature that looked exactly like Jiang Chen appeared in front of him. Without waiting for Jiang Chen's response, the creature stood up expressionlessly and walked outside. Jiang Chen was startled, and he stared at the creature formed by a wisp of chaotic energy. He couldn't figure out what was going on. However, the creature did not mean him any harm. At that moment, it was leading him back. On the way back, the living being was constantly absorbing the laws of chaos. Moreover, every time it absorbed a strand of the laws of chaos, its aura would grow stronger. When it walked out of the star sea, the aura it exuded had reached that of an upper emperor. What exactly are you? Jiang Chen asked. Whoosh! However, this creature did not answer. It turned into a ray of spiritual light and entered Jiang Chen's spiritual world. Jiang Chen hurriedly looked inside himself and saw that the living being had shrunk to the size of a palm. At this moment, its eyes were closed as it sat quietly on top of Jiang Chen's soul. Oh, could it be another clone? Jiang Chen said softly. Back when Jiang Chen fought the feather of the true god, it was because he had a clone form from chaotic chi that saved his life, allowing him to defeat the feather of the true god. However, after that battle, the clone disappeared and turned back into the primal chaos chi. Who would have thought that the clone would return? However, the clone this time seemed to be different from the previous one. The previous clone clearly did not have any consciousness and did not have any expression. However, this clone not only had consciousness, it also had a trace of emotion. When it came out of the star sea just now, this clone would look at Jiang Chen from time to time when it was devouring the laws of chaos. The disdain in its eyes could not be concealed at all. I say, you won't harm me, right? Jiang Chen asked weakly. Everyone in the world can harm you, but I won't. The clone suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Jiang Chen as if he was an idiot. It said snappily, would I harm myself? With that, the clone waved its hand and knocked Jiang Chen's consciousness out of the spiritual world. Don't come to the spiritual world for no reason. I'll help you look after this place, the clone said. At this moment, Jiang Chen's hair stood on end. I can't enter the spiritual world. Now it's being controlled by a clone? That clone wants to harm me? I say, big brother, this isn't appropriate, is it? This is my spiritual world after all. Jiang Chen looked wronged and muttered, don't act recklessly. Your spiritual world is too messy. I'll help you tidy it up and solve some things in an instant. The clone said. Then, no matter how Jiangchen spoke, the clone no longer paid attention to him. Moreover, this clone seemed to have used some kind of divine ability to isolate Jiangchen from his spiritual world, making it difficult for Jiangchen to sense everything that was happening in his spiritual world. Damn! Jiangchen's face was pitch black and his heart was bitter. However, he couldn't do anything to that clone and could only let him do whatever he wanted. Half a day later, at the black market headquarters, Jiangchen came back, and he went into the depository of Buddhist scriptures of the black market as soon as he could. The black market scripture pavilion collected all kinds of ancient books, and there was no lack of unique books that recorded secrets. He wanted to find clues about the eternal lamp and unravel the secret of the stone tablet. Sir, I found out that the 3 big shots have disappeared. They seem to have gone to war. After another half a day, an old man found Jiangchen and handed him a letter. This was left behind by the number 1 big shot. I just found it. The old man said, it's written for you to open it personally. Oh? Jiangchen was puzzled and opened the letter. When he saw the contents of the letter, his expression changed instantly. Don't believe the supreme heavenly palace. Looking at the words on the letter, Jiangchen's heart turned cold. He didn't dare to confirm whether the number 1 big shot was telling the truth or not, but he understood that with the number 1 big shot's identity and strength, there was no need for him to frame the supreme heavenly palace in a roundabout way. What's going on? Jiangchen was puzzled. He secretly thought that the supreme heavenly palace had treated him well and had helped him several times before. Not long ago, the supreme heavenly palace had even announced to the world that they would protect Jiangchen. This was openly going against the Hurricane Lily race. Then, since the supreme heavenly palace treated Jiangchen so well, why couldn't Jiangchen believe them? Do you know about the supreme heavenly palace's situation? Jiangchen looked at the old man in front of him. This old man had been in the black market for a long time and was considered a trusted aide of the 3 big shots. He knew many secrets. The supreme heavenly palace has always been very mysterious. I don't know much either. The old man said, the only thing I know is that everyone in the supreme heavenly palace has very poor talent. But for some reason, those people in the supreme heavenly palace were able to cultivate to the peak in the end, and their talent became even more demonic. Almost all of them have the supreme Tao fruit. At this point, the old man frowned and muttered, it's strange. Every time someone from the supreme heavenly palace obtains the supreme Tao fruit, someone with the supreme Tao fruit will disappear in the great thousand world. Chapter 1349. The supreme heavenly palace was a famous supreme force in the great thousand world. Although there weren't many people in this force, each of them had a supreme Tao fruit. However, the world knew very little about the supreme heavenly palace. Even Jiangchen didn't know much about the supreme heavenly palace. He only knew that this force was very strong and treated him exceptionally well. But at this moment, Jiangchen felt a chill run down his spine, as if he had realized something serious. Could it be that the supreme heavenly palace's supreme being was able to possess someone else's Tao fruit to become a supreme being? Jiangchen asked. When he said this, the old man's expression was very calm. He raised his head to look at the ceiling of the scripture pavilion and said softly, who knows? Could it be that the supreme heavenly palace is so good to me and has been protecting me because they value my supreme Tao fruit? Jiangchen was shocked. When he recalled what had happened before, he felt fear in his heart. He began to suspect why the supreme heavenly palace was so good to him. Back then, could it be that Hongyan was lying to him about those things? Impossible. Tianxing came from the supreme heavenly palace in that life. How could the supreme heavenly palace harm me? Jiangchen was puzzled. If the supreme heavenly palace really wanted to harm him, why would they go through so much trouble? They could have taken action earlier and snatched his supreme Tao fruit. Could it be that the time isn't right? Jiangchen's mind was in a mess. He felt that this matter was very serious. If he was the slightest bit careless, he might be consigned to eternal damnation. Sir, it's better for you not to think about these things. Now that almost all the transcendent being in the great thousand world have left, with your cultivation and strength, you can be considered to be a tyrant now. The old man said, in addition, your brothers have destroyed the sacred land. Now, it can be said that they have replaced the sacred land's position in the great thousand world. When Jiang Chen heard this, he laughed bitterly and said, so what if they've replaced it? I'm not interested in these things. Perhaps you're really not interested, but what about your brothers? The old man said, isn't it good to dominate the great thousand world, unify the four directions, rule the world, leave a name for all eternity? Who wouldn't be tempted? This? To be honest, I'm also tempted, Jiang Chen said honestly. After all, who would want to live a mediocre life? Who didn't want to cause a sensation in the world? Now, this opportunity was right in front of him. Could it be that he had to give up this opportunity? Moreover, if he really controlled the great thousand world, Jiang Chen would have more chances to unlock the ancestral realm's ancestral realm and release it. You gather Jiang Lu and the others. I will ask them for their opinion, said Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen could not make this decision alone. After all, once they planned to unify the great thousand world, it meant that they would have to start a war with many forces. There wasn't a single dynasty that wasn't built in the flames of war and blood. Therefore, this matter had to be handled with caution. My lord, please wait here. I will go and gather them. As he turned around, he suddenly said, Your Excellency, the three authorities call me rotten. You can call me that too. Rotten? Okay, then I will call you that from now on. Jiang Chen nodded. Next, Jiang Chen stayed in the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion, flipping through the ancient books, trying to find some clues. It wasn't until 3 days later that Jiang Chen finally found something. In an ancient book, there were some things about the three Yang realms. It was written that the three Yang realms and the three Yin realms were the world's closest to the immortal realm. It was also the easiest for the cultivators of the three Yang realms and the three Yin realms to become immortals. However, at some point in time, the path to immortality of the three Yang realms and the three Yin realms was cut off, suppressing the immortal qi of the three Yang realms. It was also from then on that the three Yang realms began to fight and chose the great thousand worlds as the battlefield. At first, no one was puzzled. After all, the great thousand worlds happened to be in the middle of the three Yang realms, so it was reasonable to choose this place as the battlefield. However, after a few battles, the great thousand worlds also received some news. The reason why the people of the three Yang realms chose the great thousand worlds as the battlefield was not to destroy the other side, but to find something in the great thousand worlds. It was said that this thing could reopen the path to immortality of the three Yang realms. It can't be. Under the Qinghai Black River, that stone tablet suppressed the immortal qi of the three Yang realms? Jiang Chen was shocked. If what was recorded in the ancient book was true, then that stone tablet was too important. If the path to immortality of the three Yang realms is suppressed, then the path to immortality of the three Yin realms should also be suppressed, right? Jiang Chen muttered. If it was as he guessed, then where was the stone tablet that suppressed the three Yin realms? Chaotic qi? After another half a day, Jiang Chen found some information about the chaotic qi in an ancient book. It was recorded that the chaotic qi had existed since the beginning of the world. This force was very powerful and very pure. It could be said that it was the foundation of all things in the world. Since the appearance of the living beings in the world, it was equivalent to leaving the chaotic qi. Impurities appeared in their bodies, so the living beings in the world could not control the chaotic qi. Someone once came to the conclusion that the end of cultivation was to get rid of all the impurities in one's body and return to the beginning of the chaotic qi. The end of cultivation is chaos. Jiang Chen muttered softly. He continued reading until he saw such a line of words in the end. The chaotic qi has a spirit and can recognize its master. With this line of words, Jiang Chen's heart trembled. He could not enter the spiritual world, but he was trying to communicate with the three strands of chaotic qi. By the way, I'm your master, Jiang Chen said softly. He knew that the 3 strands of chaotic chi could hear him. Isn't that nonsense? If we don't recognize you as our master, why should we help you? Kid, you're so careless. It took you so long to realize it? You've been guarding against us for harming you. After a few breaths, the 3 strands of chaotic chi spoke one after another, criticizing Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun looked embarrassed. He thought to himself that he had really misunderstood these 3 strands of chaotic chi. By the way, why do you want to imprison the lantern bearer? Jiang Chun asked. He had always been puzzled about this matter. You don't really think that the lantern bearer is something that was born after the myriad transformations heavenly lamp evolved, do you? One of the strands of chaotic chi said angrily. You're really stupid. Since ancient times, everyone knows that the myriad transformations heavenly lamp can't evolve. The lantern bearer in your body is just a set of coordinates that someone left in your body for some reason. The lantern bearer can control the myriad transformations heavenly lamp and hold the green lamp. This is to guide some terrifying and unknown living beings back. The 3 strands of chaotic chi explained, but they could not tell who the lantern bearer was going to guide back. However, they had a feeling that they absolutely could not let the lantern bearer guide those living beings back. Otherwise, something big would happen. Chapter 1350. Jiang Chun had always thought that the lamp bearer appeared because of the advancement of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, but who would have thought that this thing was not the case at all? If not for these 3 wisps of chaotic aura telling him, Jiang Chun would still be in the dark. However, Jiang Chun was also very puzzled. Since the lamp bearer was not a product of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp's advancement, nor was it his own, then how could he control the lamp bearer? The lamp bearer is just a consciousness that can be controlled by anyone, the chaotic aura said. However, the original purpose of his existence is to guide certain existences back. Can this thing completely destroy it? Jiang Chun asked. It can't be destroyed. The cultivation of the living being who left behind such a consciousness is extremely terrifying. Unless our strength surpasses his, this lamp bearer can only be imprisoned and can't be destroyed, the chaotic aura said. Jiang Chun was shocked when he heard this. He could feel that the 3 wisps of chaotic aura were very powerful, comparable to peak emperors. Moreover, because of the extraordinary nature of the chaotic aura, their combat strength was probably comparable to extraordinary beings. However, such strength was unable to destroy the lamp bearer. Then, how terrifying was the cultivation of the person who left behind the will of the lamp bearer? Was he an immortal? There are too many things in your soul, and it's too messy. Let me help you clean them up. The chaotic aura that had turned into a clone said, You don't use the best things. They're all covered in dust in your soul. What things? Jiang Chun was puzzled. This drop of blood essence. The clone said, Do you know whose blood essence this is? It's the blood essence of myriad transformations. After you obtained it, you actually kept it in your soul world and didn't touch it at all. You're really ruining heaven's treasure. How do I use this thing? Jiang Chun asked with a confused expression. I don't know, but this blood essence should contain some kind of inheritance or even some memory fragments. The clone said, Whoever started the trouble should end it. This blood essence is yours. If you want to undo the power of this blood essence, you can only do it yourself. Jiang Chun's face darkened when he heard this. He couldn't even enter the soul world now. So how could he comprehend the mysteries of this blood essence? Boss, are you there? At this moment, the voices of Zhang and the others came from outside the scripture pavilion. Jiang Chun walked out and saw that Zhang and the others were all safe and sound. Boss, why did you suddenly leave? What were you going to do? Zhang asked. I made a trip to the ancestral land of the spider lilies. Jiang Chun smiled. Fortunately, I was fine. Didn't I come back alive? The ancestral land of the red spider lilies. Boss, if you want to do anything in the future, you should discuss it with us in advance. We were very worried about you leaving so suddenly. The group of people spoke angrily, feeling extremely dissatisfied. Jiang Chun burst out laughing. He didn't dwell on this matter any longer. Then he called everyone into the main hall. His expression turned serious as he said, "The Holy Land was destroyed by you. You can be said to have replaced the Holy Land." Boss, it's strange. When we went to the Holy Land, there wasn't a single extraordinaire in the entire place. That's right, and there are obvious signs of fighting outside the Holy Land. Everyone was puzzled. Jiangchen laughed and said, "I've been there before. Boss, you're not the extraordinaire who destroyed the Holy Land, are you?" Zhang Lu's eyes widened. He felt that his guess was not far from the truth. Jiangchen nodded, then waved his hand and said, "Let's talk about business first. The Holy Land has been replaced by you. Now, the extraordinaires of the major forces have basically left. Now, the Great Thousand World can be said to be without a master," Jiangchen said and looked at everyone meaningfully. "Do you have any ideas?" As soon as these words came out, Wakako was the first to stand up. His domineering aura erupted. He raised his eyebrows and said, "What else can we think? Of course, we're going to establish a dynasty and dominate the Great Thousand World. Isn't the purpose of living for fame and fortune? Eternal prosperity. As long as we unify the Great Thousand World, the day of breaking the seal and curse of the ancestral realm won't be far away." They spoke one after another. Obviously, they had thought about it before. Jiangchen nodded. He also had the same idea. However, one had to know that dominating the Great Thousand World was not an easy task. Especially now, although the major forces were much more low-key, one had to admit that they were powerful. For example, the Red Spider Lily clan had a terrifying foundation. How could they watch Jiangchen and the others dominate the Great Thousand World? Although the Supreme Heavenly Palace was restraining the Red Spider Lily clan, Jiangchen did not really trust the Supreme Heavenly Palace now. "Boss, this matter is very simple. Whoever is not convinced, we'll beat them until they're convinced." That's right. This is a world where strength speaks. As long as we are strong enough, why can't we unify the Great Thousand World? Wakako was very excited. He had always been like this, domineering in his heart. As for the others, they did not say anything, but their thoughts were basically similar to Wakako's. "Why don't we test the attitude of the major forces in the Great Thousand World first?" Jiangchen said softly. "Let's take a look at the situation first. If the situation is too bad, then we'll have to carefully consider the matter of unifying the Great Thousand World." "Boss, what do you plan to do?" Xiao Qingyi asked. "Invite the leaders of the major forces to attend the meeting and ask for their opinions." Jiangchen said, "Hold a grand event. All right, let's find out their background first." In the end, everyone decided to hold a grand event in the black market. Jiangchen asked Rotten to handle this matter. In the next few days, everyone was in the black market. They either cultivated or chatted. Their days were quite comfortable. However, to Jiangchen, these days were a little uncomfortable. Ever since the accident last time, when he did that with Ninth Heaven, this little girl was about to ascend to heaven. Over the past few days, the Nine Heavens had been trying to seduce Jiangchen from time to time, especially in front of Bai Fengyu and others. This little girl was very happy. Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer's faces darkened. As the first and second disciples, they had not succeeded yet. Master, on this day Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer came. Their eyes were soft and gentle as they looked at Jiangchen with resentment. Jiangchen's body went numb. He braced himself and asked, "What's the matter?" "It's nothing, it's just—" Bai Fengyu blushed and was too embarrassed to say it. On the other hand, Nayland Mayer was much more direct. She sat on Jiangchen's bed and said, "Master, let's do it." Jiangchen felt a headache. What kind of world was this? These disciples, other than wanting to sleep with him, couldn't they have any other thoughts? "Boss, the leaders of the major forces are basically all here." At this moment, the simple-minded Jiang Lu walked in. When he saw Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer sitting on the bed, he said straightforwardly, "You guys can wait first." Chapter 1351. Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer had no temper at all in front of the silly Jiang Lu. If it were anyone else who saw this scene, they would naturally turn around and leave, pretending that they did not see anything. But for Jianglu, sigh, forget it, it was better not to mention it. What a good brother. Jiangchen walked to Jianglu's side and patted him on the shoulder. It's all thanks to you. Then Jiangchen left in a hurry. He didn't even stay for a second. Jianglu was dumbfounded. He did not understand what his boss meant. He followed Jiangchen out and soon arrived outside the main hall of the black market. Don't think that you can replace the Holy Land just because you destroyed it. Not all the extraordinaires in this world have left. Some of them are still here. A few brats from the Six Realms want to control the great wide world. Dream on? We will never agree. When Jiangchen arrived at the entrance of the main hall, he heard a lot of noise coming from inside. Boss, they're not convinced. Jianglu's face darkened, and killing intent exploded in his eyes. To Jianglu, it was not important for him to be wronged, but if someone dared to be disrespectful to Jiangchen, then this matter would not be settled peacefully. It's fine. Let's listen a little more, Jiangchen said softly. He had already expected this scene. However, Jiangchen was not worried. He knew better than anyone that since the leaders of these forces had come, they must be afraid of them. If they were not afraid of them, they would not have come. Bang! However, before Jiangchen could continue listening, he heard a muffled sound coming from inside. Then he saw a half-step extraordinaire old man flying out. Blood splattered along the way until he landed outside the main hall. His body exploded, leaving only his soul behind. At the same time, Wakako's voice came from inside the main hall. How dare you? Do you want to die? Then, Xiao Qingyi's voice came. What? If you're not convinced, then you want to fight? After a few breaths, Beta Heiki's voice rang out. She said coldly, we don't care if you submit or not. You have to submit even if you don't. When Jiangchen heard these words, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. With these guys together, this matter was going to get bigger and bigger. Everyone, if there's anything, we can discuss it. There's no need to fight. At this moment, Jiangchen walked in with a smile on his face. He clasped his hands together as a sign of respect towards the leader of the faction. Are you blind? Who the F***CK did it? It's your brothers who did it. We didn't do anything. There were more than 30 lords of forces in the hall. When they had heard what Jiangchen had said, they all turned green with fright. Attack? How would they dare? This was the headquarters of the black market. Even if they were given 10 guts, they wouldn't dare to make a move here. Moreover, there was not a single extraordinaire among the people who came here this time. As for the emperors, Wakako and the others were the strongest group of emperors in the world. How could they make a move in front of this group of people? Did they dare to make a move? Everyone, I've called you here today to discuss an important matter. Jiangchen ignored these people and slowly sat down at the front of the hall. Beside him stood Wakako and the others, looking very intimidating. Those of us from the Six Realms, in the end, belong to the ancestral realm, Jiangchen said slowly. The ancestral realm is also considered a part of the greater thousand world. Therefore, we're all family. When everyone heard this, they rolled their eyes. After all, what Jiangchen had said was true, but it felt a little strange. Since we're all family, I'll be straightforward. Jiangchen paused for a moment, and his aura erupted. Although his cultivation was not high, the aura he exuded was comparable to that of an emperor. Little brat, hurry up and say what you want to say. Don't show your aura to scare us. We won't fall for it. When we're reigning over the greater thousand world, you might still be playing with mud in the Six Realms. At this moment, some of the lords of the forces flew into a rage. They didn't show any respect to Jiangchen at all. Hearing this, Jiangchen smiled and nodded at Wakako, Jianglu, and the others. Then he closed his eyes. The next moment, Wakako, Jianglu, and Xiao Qingyi stepped out, and each of them punched out, sending all the people who were mentioned flying. Everyone, I like to convince people with virtue. Don't force me to convince people with force. Jiangchen narrowed his eyes and said, You like to convince people with virtue. They just said one sentence, and you sent them flying. What a good way to convince people with virtue. Many people were cursing Jiangchen inwardly, but a smile appeared on their faces. They were all smiling flatteringly, but they didn't refute Jiang Chen openly. The Greater Thousand World is vast, and the forces are complicated. If no one stands up to preside over the overall situation, the Greater Thousand World will definitely be in chaos. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen spoke again. He slowly stood up, pointed at himself, and pointed at the people around him, and said, "I'm willing to take on this responsibility to maintain the peace of the Greater Thousand World." Shameless. Simply shameless. The group of people cursed in their hearts, but no one said anything. After all, Jiang Lu and the others were simply too intimidating. However, the thing that these people were most afraid of was not Jiang Chen and the others, but the old man standing below Jiang Chen. The rotten man. When several leaders looked at the rotten man, their expressions were strange, and there was fear in the depths of their eyes. They recognized the rotten man's identity. He was a prehistoric almighty. In some ancient ruins, and even in some portraits, the rotten man's figure could be seen. However, what they found hard to understand was why a prehistoric almighty was willing to work for the black market and listen to Jiang Chen's words. This was not appropriate, right? Then, here's the main point. Do you agree? After a few breaths, Jiang Chen's eyes shone brightly. With a wave of his hand, the array that had been set up long ago rose up. At this moment, the group of leaders was dumbfounded, and they began to curse Jiang Chen in their hearts again. King asked us if we agree. With such a lineup, how could we not agree? How could we not agree? King convince people with virtue? I'd be a fool to believe you. Since you destroyed the sacred land, it's only natural that you inherit the position of the sacred land. Yes. Now there are less than 1/10 of the Greater Thousand Worlds extraordinaries left, and we've seen your strength. You can indeed rule the Greater Thousand World. The group of leaders said against their will. They had to squeeze out a smile on their faces to avoid being beaten up by Jiang Lu and the others. Well, if you agree, then sign this agreement. Jiang Chen smiled and took out a silk letter that was more than 10 meters long. After you sign, it'll be considered that you've acknowledged us. At that time, I'll announce it to the world. F***CK. You've been F***King prepared for this? That means, whether we come today or not, you want to rule the Greater Thousand World. Chapter 1352. The alliance contract couldn't be signed casually. After all of the people here were leaders of influential forces. Once they signed it, Jiang Chen would announce it to the world. It meant these forces would all belong to Jiang Chen. At that time, even if these factions wanted to rebel, they would be cursed for eternity. What these top factions cared about the most was face and reputation. Isn't this a little too rushed? We're here today to discuss, not to sign an alliance agreement. A few people frowned, obviously unwilling to sign this alliance agreement. In this regard, Jiang Chen did not force them. With a smile on his face, he said, "Everyone, I won't force you. If you want to sign, then sign. If you don't, then leave." After saying that, Jiang Chen paused for a moment, and then his expression became serious. If you don't sign and walk out of this door, then it's hard to say whether you'll be an enemy or a friend in the future. Jiang Chen, there are so many factions in the world. Do you really think that you can unify the world with just a few people? Humph! I won't sign today. After walking out of this door, I don't care whether I'll be an enemy or a friend in the future. At this moment, 6 faction leaders stood up with cold expressions. After saying a few words, they directly left. This time, Jiang Chen did not stop them, and Jiang Lu and the others did not make a move. They just let them go. The remaining group of people stayed where they were, hesitating. After all, no one wanted to be a subordinate. However, this era was different. Almost all the extraordinaries had left. Jiang Chen's group was undoubtedly the strongest in this world. As for top existences like the Red Spider Lily, they naturally would not participate in this matter. After all, for the Red Spider Lily, no matter who rose or fell in this world, it would be difficult to shake them. Maybe we can take a gamble. What if this guy really dominates the world? If he does, then we'll be the first to eat meat and drink soup. With his personality, he shouldn't treat us unfairly. After a dozen breaths, 3 faction leaders hardened their hearts and decided to sign the alliance agreement. They were very clearly aware that in this era, a storm was brewing and undercurrents were surging. If they didn't struggle and gamble, then who knew who would reign supreme in the world tomorrow? The 3 of you, aren't you afraid of regretting signing the alliance contract so hastily? How ignorant. They only have a few people, and they think they can dominate the great thousand world? Some people were still hesitating. At this moment, they were even mocking and ridiculing the 3 people. The 3 lords didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, they cupped their hands before Jiang Chun to salute him respectfully. "Oh, so the 3 of you come from the same source," Jiang Chun said with a smile. He looked at the names of the 3 forces on the contract. They were the Sun, Moon, and Star sects. Our 3 forces were originally the same sect in prehistoric times. Later on, due to some matters, we split up. In our generation, we want to unite the 3 forces. I hope that we can make use of this opportunity to rebuild the reputation of the Heaven and Earth sect. The Sun, Moon, and Star sects were known as the Heaven and Earth sect in prehistoric times. Later on, after a series of chaos, they split up into the Sun, Moon, and Star sects. And now, these 3 forces wanted to take a gamble. If they succeeded, the 3 sects would definitely be able to shine brightly in the great thousand world. It's fine if we don't sign it. Jiang Chun, I've thought about it. This alliance agreement really can't be signed. Goodbye. After another dozen breaths, a few more people left. Jiang Chun still did not stop them. However, not long after they left, 3 horrifying evil auras exploded from the sky and descended into the main hall. Upon closer inspection, the 3 of them were the evil race. Furthermore, their cultivation bases were unfathomable, far surpassing that of extraordinary beings. This was especially so for their bodies. Not only were there horrifying evil auras, there were even wisps of immortal chi. Yo, Rotten One? To think that after so many years, I'd still be able to see you. At this moment, the 3 patriarchs from the evil race looked at Rotten One in surprise. Obviously, they knew him. Rotten One was also stunned for a moment. Looking at the 3 patriarchs, he frowned and said, "Good people don't live long. Scourges live for thousands of years." What are you saying? Don't you have any shame? Did you kill fewer people than us in prehistoric times? That's right. How shameless. The 3 patriarchs said unhappily. After a round of sarcastic banter, their gazes landed on Jiang Chun. "Kid, I'll be frank with you. The evil race supports you. As long as you don't forget about us, the evil race will always help you." The ancestors of the 3 evil races said seriously. They had come here this day to help Jiang Chun and to intimidate the lords of these forces. At this moment, the faces of the leaders who were still in the main hall darkened. They were not stupid. Their eyes were sharp. The cultivation of these 3 patriarchs was half a step away from becoming immortals. Such figures, not to mention now, even in the past, were giants who dominated a region. "Thank you, evil race." Jiang Chun smiled, but there was no ripple or surprise in his heart. Before the start of this event, Jiang Chun had expected the evil race to return. After all, there was a strange substance in the evil race's body that needed to be purified with Jiang Chun's blood essence. "I think we can sign an alliance agreement. With these 3 patriarchs, this alliance agreement can be set." At this moment, the 4 leaders made a decision and signed the alliance agreement one after another. However, there were still some people who were still hesitating. After all, the great wide world was too big. Who knew if there were still powerhouses? With just these 3 evil race ancestors, they really might not be able to suppress the boundless universe. "Jiang Chun, you killed my Red Spider Lily Clan's clansmen. Do you admit to this crime?" Suddenly, the sky above the black market darkened, and then a huge red spider lily bloomed. In the middle of the red spider lily, An old man with white hair and a youthful face stood tall. His eyes were bright, and the universe turned into mountains and rivers, trembling under his feet. His attitude was very tough, and his aura was extremely terrifying. After coming here, he questioned him face to face. I killed in Song, and I also killed in Tian. So what? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and walked out of the main hall. He looked up at the Red Spider Lily Clan's elder and asked, "What? You want me to pay with my life? Today, since this old man has come, then you will die." The light on the old man's body dissipated, revealing his true appearance. It was Enchi. F*CK? Enchi? This old man. He was a ruthless character in prehistory. I didn't expect him to still be alive and in the same condition as before. The three patriarchs were shocked. They were all creatures of the same era and knew how terrifying Enchi was. At this moment, the three patriarchs were stunned. For a moment, they hesitated whether to fight against Enchi. Enchi, long time no see. Just as the three of them were hesitating, the rotten man suddenly took a step forward and soared into the air, quickly arriving in front of Enchi. Chapter 1353. Enchi came with an unyielding attitude, and her intentions were clear. She was here to kill Jiang Chun. While the three evil race patriarchs were hesitating, no one expected the rotten to step forward. One had to know that the aura he exuded was inferior to the three evil race patriarchs. But he dared to face Enchi directly. The most surprising thing was that the moment Enchi saw the rotten, her pupils constricted as if she had seen something incredible. "You're not dead?" Enchi's expression was grave, and her voice was much lower. The rotten stroked his beard and smiled. "You're not dead either. I didn't expect you to be hiding in the black market." Enchi said in a low voice, "With your cultivation and identity, are you willing to work like a horse for the black market? Are you willing to sit under that kid? Why not?" The rotten raised his eyebrows. "The rotten are old, and the old are rotten. Times are changing, and our era is over. It's time to give the opportunity to the young." With that, the rotten pointed at the sky meaningfully. "Even the heavens are changing, let alone us. You admit defeat?" Enchi frowned. As soon as this was said, the group of people below was a little confused. The fight hadn't even started yet, and the rotten had admitted defeat? Then why did he go up? But there were also a few people who frowned, as if they knew what Enchi meant. The rotten didn't admit defeat to Enchi. An evil race patriarch explained. His admission of defeat wasn't targeted at a person. Then, could it be directed at the heavens? Everyone reacted quickly, and a storm was set off in their hearts. Admitting defeat to the heavens? Could it be that the rotten had been fighting against the heavens? Fighting against the heavens? Even a perfected immortal wouldn't dare, right? Jiang Chen muttered. In this world, especially in prehistory, perfected immortals were the strongest. However, even a perfected immortal wouldn't dare to fight against the heavens. The heavens were invisible, but they had intentions. The will of the heavens could not be defied. How could the living beings of this world fight against the heavens? But now, after hearing Enchi's words, everyone thought of many things and became even more curious about the rotten's identity. What kind of person was the rotten in prehistory? Not only would Enchi fear him, he would even dare to go against the heavens. It's time to admit defeat. After all, it's been so many years, and I still haven't passed that hurdle. The rotten man sighed. You should leave. I haven't fought in a long time, and I don't want to. Enchi is one of the ancestors of the Permitha Flower clan. He was already famous in prehistoric times and dared to fight against the master of the heavenly court. How can a rotten person make such a person retreat with just a few words? Rotten one, aren't you being too arrogant? No one was convinced. They felt that Duja was being too arrogant. However, to everyone's surprise, after Enchi heard this, he hesitated and asked, "Today, I can't kill Jiang Chen? With me here, you won't be able to kill him." The rotten man nodded. Hearing this, Enchi didn't say anything else and actually turned to leave. At this moment, exclamations sounded from all around. Even the three evil race ancestors were dumbfounded. They also knew Rotten from prehistoric times, but they never expected Rotten to be able to persuade Enchi to retreat with just one sentence. Could it be that this old guy is still hiding something from us? Rotten 1. This guy is unfathomable. The three evil race ancestors were shocked. At this moment, they finally understood that this seemingly old person who was willing to work in the black market was definitely not simple. We're willing to sign the contract. Quickly bring the contract over. I'll sign it now. At this moment, the remaining faction leaders were anxious. They were still hesitating before. Even when the three evil race ancestors came, they were still hesitating. But now, they didn't hesitate anymore. This was because the rotten man was too mysterious. Although he didn't make a move, everyone could see that he was very strong. With such a thigh, these faction leaders weren't fools. How could they not hug him tightly? Everyone will be family from now on. If there's any trouble, we'll help each other. Jiang Qin smiled and then looked at the rotten man who had returned to his side. He couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked, Rotten 1, what's your cultivation levels? Me? The rotten man was stunned for a moment. It seemed that no one had asked him this question for several generations. He couldn't answer for a moment. What else could it be? Of course, it's the same as us, half-step to immortality. That's right. I remember very clearly that the rotten man didn't become an immortal in prehistoric times. In today's environment, it's impossible for all living things to become immortals. The rotten man's cultivation level should be the same as ours. The three evil race ancestors said, but they still looked at the rotten man suspiciously. Rotten nodded with a smile and said, it should be half a step away from becoming an immortal. It should be? Jiang Chun was a little confused. He secretly thought that the rotten man had lived for so long that he even forgot his own cultivation level. Boss, it's all signed. When will we announce it to the world? Not long after, Jiang Lu came over with the contract and asked expectantly. After all, as long as they announced it to the world and made the contract public, they would be in control of the Great Thousand World. Of course, that couldn't be considered true control. After all, there would definitely be objections. We'll announce it to the world tomorrow. At that time, everyone should be prepared for battle. Jiang Qin reminded, the Great Thousand World is so big. There will definitely be forces that won't accept it. Many forces will even join forces to fight us. A great battle is inevitable. Sorry for the wait. Wakako narrowed his eyes and revealed his domineering aura. We'll decide the world with a battle. We'll be done with the battle. In the end, the leaders of the major forces left, but the three evil race ancestors stayed behind to guard the black market. Of course, their main purpose was to stay by Jiang Qin's side and get more of Jiang Qin's essence and blood. Boss, since we're going to rule the Great Thousand World, we must have a name. Xiao Qingyi walked over and said softly, we're considered a major force, but we haven't named it yet. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chun frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, he said, in the end, we are all from the ancestral realm, and we are its people. How about we call it the Ancestral Court? We'll listen to you, boss. Ancestral Court? The Ancestral Realm's Holy Court. Okay. Time passed. The next day, Jiang Qin sent people from the black market to announce this matter to the world. He was truly waving the flag. Not long after, in less than 30 minutes, a top force in the southern region of the Great Thousand World announced that they would never recognize the Ancestral Court's position in the Great Thousand World. Not long after, forces from all over the Great Thousand World announced this. Half a day later, as Jiang Qin had said before, these forces had formed an alliance to overthrow the Ancestral Court. The first battle after the establishment of the Ancestral Court, everyone, is about to begin. Jiang Qin's expression was solemn, and his eyes burned with fighting spirit. Are you all ready? Chapter 1354. The establishment of the Ancestral Court temporarily used the black market headquarters as the mountain gate, waving the flag and announcing to the world. All the major star fields had forces resisting. In just half a day, some forces had formed an alliance and sent their top powerhouses toward the black market headquarters. Wakako, you guard the south of the black market with Sun Zong. Jianglu, you and Yu Zong guard the north. Shaoqingyi, you and Xingzong guard the west. You female disciples guard the east. Jiang Qin's decision-making speed was very fast. He even called over the powerhouses of the forces that had submitted to him in the shortest time possible. After he assigned the tasks, he stood quietly at the entrance of the black market hall with the Rotten Man and the other leaders. The most important thing in a battle is not how many people are killed, but how many leaders are killed. Jiang Qin said in a deep voice, "We will wait here. I believe that the strongest powerhouses of those forces will come here. If we win this battle, the ancestral court's position in the great wide world will be stable. Since we have already submitted to the ancestral court, we will definitely live and die with it." The leaders of the major forces were also determined. Today, the ancestral court would either rise or be destroyed. As for them, it could be said that they had put their lives on the line. Although first, after half an incense stick's time, the Rotten Man's expression froze. He looked to the south, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He left directly without telling Jiang Chun and the others why he had left. But everyone knew that the Rotten Man must have sensed the arrival of the supreme powerhouses. The first battle of this battle was the Rotten Man. Senior Rotten Man should be fine, right? What problem can there be? He can force an Qi to retreat with a single sentence. How many people in this world can contend with Senior Rotten Man? The leaders of the major forces were very confident in the Rotten Man. Even Jiang Qin thought that there would be no problem with the Rotten Man in this battle. After another half an incense stick's time, the three evil race patriarchs' expressions froze, and they rushed to the east and west respectively. Obviously, they had also sensed the arrival of the supreme powerhouses. And those supreme powerhouses were not people that Jiang Chun and the others could deal with. There are so many top forces in the great wide world. Do we have enough people? One of the leaders asked softly. One had to know that the four strongest people in Ancestral Court had all come out to fight. Now, the only ones left were the emperors. Number of people? Jiang Qin whispered. The corner of his lips curled up with a hint of arrogance. When have we ever lost in terms of numbers? This? What do you mean? Our strongest four have already joined the battle. If a few more extraordinaires come, we won't be able to handle them. It was natural that some people were worried and felt guilty. However, Jiang Chun was already prepared. A few breaths later, a five-clawed golden dragon suddenly appeared in the sky above the black market's main hall. The dragon's aura was vast and mighty, and the golden light from its body shone in all directions like the sun. Then a vermilion bird descended. Its blazing flames seemed as if it wanted to burn everything down. After a few breaths of time, a phoenix let out a long cry, and a few emperors of the phoenix race also arrived. Boss, I'm not too late, right? Hey, in today's battle, we'll make our great virtue famous. Yes. In today's battle, kill the men and leave the women alive. I, Huang Dade, want to give birth to a race. The four great virtues came. They went to their respective races to call for powerhouses and even invited a few extraordinaires. As for the emperors, almost all of them came. However, in such a tense atmosphere, the words that these great virtues said did not match the scene. This world is going to return to one? How many years has it been? There hasn't been such a big commotion. I didn't expect that once Ancestral Court appeared, the world would be in an uproar. If Ancestral Court wins, they can take control of the great wide world, and the ancestral realm might come back because of this. In all parts of the world, people were studying the current situation, but not many people were optimistic about Ancestral Court. After all, Ancestral Court had only been established for a day, and it was about to usher in an unprecedented battle. Moreover, the difference in numbers between the two sides was too great. Even with the support of the evil race and a few demons, there were still not many people in Ancestral Court. The number of people who rebelled against Ancestral Court was definitely more than 10,000. Moreover, Among these 10,000 people, the lowest cultivation base was at the emperor level. Just like the ancestral realm back then, no matter how strong you are, you can't defeat the enemies of the world. What's the use of being strong alone? What's the use of being strong with a few people? With so many people fighting you, you can be dragged to death. At this moment, an explosion came from the south of the black market. Then, an extremely violent, domineering aura rose, and one could hear Wakako's violent roar. The battle has begun. I hope we can hold on. Jiang Chun and the others whispered, their expressions tense. They all knew very well that the key to determining the outcome of this battle was not in the four directions, but in the battle in the black market hall. Anyone who dared to come here to fight was basically a faction leader. As long as these faction leaders were destroyed, this battle would be considered a victory. However, the premise was that before the battle in the black market hall ended, Wakako and the others could hold on and not die. What ancestral court? Back then, the ancestral realm was destroyed and cursed by us. You're just a mere ancestral court, and you still want to dominate the upper-class world? Jiang Chun, you're too naive. Half an hour later, the void above the black market hall split open, and dozens of figures stood in the void. The aura of a superior emperor erupted, and an extraordinary stood at the front. They're here. There's actually an extraordinary. Fortunately, there's only one. Everyone was shocked. They looked up at the group of living beings in the void, and fighting spirit erupted in their eyes. There's no need to say anything more. Today's battle is over. Jiang Chun shouted softly. With a wave of his hand, all the faction leaders beside him moved out. As the court master of Ancestral Court, Jiang Chun naturally had to face the strongest among that group of people. I'm a divine emperor. You shouldn't be at a disadvantage when fighting with an extraordinary like you, right? Jiang Chun stood on the spot and narrowed his eyes at the extraordinary. He teased, but do you think you have a chance of winning? What a joke. The gap between realms is like a chasm that is difficult to cross. You're just a divine emperor. How can you fight with me? The extraordinary was very confident. As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed out a finger. It was as if an ancient stone pillar had fallen, directly suppressing the black market hall. Smoke and dust rose everywhere, and terrifying laws were rampant. However, amidst the dust, Jiang Chun stood there with a faint smile on his face, unharmed. That's it? Jiang Chun said softly. His figure flashed and arrived in the air, standing on par with the extraordinary. In the next moment, there was a series of explosions coming from Jiang Chun's body. Chaotic energy erupted, and 3 Tao souls appeared beside him like the sun, moon, and stars. Chapter 1355. The 3 Tao souls appeared at the same time, and their radiance filled the entire area. Starting from his side, it spread all the way. The laws and order were like dragons swimming in the void. Every move he made seemed to have the aura of a king. If I say you can't do it, you can't do it. The world is so big that it's not something a mere god-emperor like you can control. The extraordinaire was very domineering and very confident. As he spoke, he raised his hand and waved it down. Like a long spear, it pierced through the void. A fist print with the power of laws came crashing down on Jiang Chun. That's it, Jiang Chun said softly. Without moving, the 3 Tao souls vibrated. The emperor's vine stretched out, and its branches and leaves covered the sky. It really had the aura of a world tree. The vines were burning with inextinguishable flames, and a vermilion bird stood there. With a long cry, flames filled the sky and turned the area into a sea of fire. In the depths of the sea of fire, a green lamp burned leisurely. The light was not very strong, but it gave people a feeling that it could melt everything. The extraordinary's fist radiance could not even get close to Jiang Chun before it was destroyed by the power of the 3 Tao souls. Then, the vermilion bird let out a long cry and rushed out. As it flapped its wings, there seemed to be a burst of sword light. Chi! Chi! With the sound of the air being torn apart, the flames in the sky turned into sharp blades. They tore through the void and rushed to the extraordinary in an instant. Child's play. This extraordinary human was very strong, and he was extremely confident in himself. He raised his hand again, and a Tai Chi suddenly appeared in his palm. The Tai Chi separated yin and yang, and it seemed to separate this part of the world. It destroyed the sharp blades in the sky. Then his palm continued to reach out and went straight for the undying bird. "You're just a mortal." The undying bird let out a long cry. Its sharp claws grabbed an emperor's vine and whipped it toward the extraordinary's palm. Boom! In the next moment, with a loud explosion, the emperor vine exploded. At the same time, the flames in the sky dissipated, and even the undying bird was sent flying. However, his opponent's body was shattered, and even his soul was dim. There was even a sword-like emperor's vine above his soul that had nailed him to the void. "I am a transcendent. The transcendent great Tao is not something you can bully." The supernatural being roared angrily. His soul trembled as he tried to shake off the emperor vine. However, before the emperor's vine could be shaken off, a wisp of green flame slowly attacked and touched his soul. Chi! In a few breaths of time, the extraordinaire did not even have the chance to scream before he was reduced to ashes on the spot. Not even a wisp of ash was left. "I don't even need to do anything myself." Jiang Chun pursed his lips and looked around. The battle was still going on. However, Jiang Chun didn't help. He knew that this was just the beginning. There were so many top forces in the great wide world, and their foundations were very deep. There should be a few extraordinaires. As the court master of the ancestral court, Jiang Chun naturally had to face those extraordinaires. As the saying goes, it's better to kill a general than to kill a soldier, and it's better to kill a king than to kill a general. Jiang Chun whispered, "I'll just become a king. There should be many people who want to take my life, right?" "Of course." Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The space around Jiang Chun was filled with a layer of frost, and even his 3 Tao souls were frozen. Jiang Chun was shocked. The divine power in his body burst out and turned into flames, trying to melt the layer of frost. However, the person who attacked this time was very fast and sinister. The moment Jiang Chun was frozen, he rushed out of the void and pointed at the space between Jiang Chun's eyebrows. In an instant, an extremely cold force erupted as if it wanted to freeze everything. The power of Yin. Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes. His body couldn't move, and he could only take this finger head on. Puff! Under this finger, Jiang Chun was sent flying. The blood in his body froze, and even his divine power was frozen. However, if one looked carefully, there was no wound between Jiang Chun's eyebrows. Moreover, the blood and divine power in his body were also recovering at this moment. A wisp of chaotic aura swam above Jiang Chun's head like a dragon. It was this chaotic aura that blocked the man's finger. Sneak attack? Assassination? I'm afraid you don't know what's good for you. Jiang Chun's eyes were cold. After saying this, his figure disappeared on the spot. His aura was completely gone, as if he had disappeared into thin air. Even an extraordinaire couldn't detect his trace. Puff! After a few breaths, just as that person was panicking, a muffled sound came from behind him. He looked down in a daze and saw a palm piercing through his back. The divine power and nomological order in the palm shattered his physical body. Then, a purple gold vine descended from the sky and split his soul. I've been fighting with Mu Xingyan my whole life. Even his assassination skills couldn't do anything to me, let alone your lousy assassination skills, Jiang Chun said disdainfully. After saying this, Jiang Chun looked at that person's gradually dimming soul with a faint smile and said, I'm proficient in all professions. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the man's soul exploded, and he died. After killing this person, Jiang Chun didn't dare to be careless. He knew that there might be many extraordinaires lurking around, waiting for him to reveal a flaw. At this moment, Jiang Chun formed a seal with both hands, and array patterns fell. Some appeared in the air, some jumped around him, and some hid in the void. Everyone, since you're here, why don't you attack? Do you want to wait for me to finish setting up the array before you attack? By then, you won't have a chance to kill me, Jiang Chen said mockingly. We admit that you're very strong and can defeat extraordinaires with the power of a god emperor. But so what? Since we're here, we have the confidence to kill you. After all, you're just a god emperor. In our eyes, you're still an ant. At this moment, 3 men stepped out of the void. They spoke in a disdainful tone, which really pissed Jiang Chen off. However, this time, Jiang Chen wasn't as arrogant as before. This was because the moment the 3 men appeared, the array patterns that he had just set up were destroyed. At the same time, this world seemed to be isolated from the outside world. 3 great domains emanated from these 3 people. They strengthened their domains and even trapped Jiang Chen there. Now, it's 3 against 1. In our domains, we're the kings. As a god emperor, do you have your own domain? The 3 men said disdainfully. When they looked at Jiang Chen, although there was a hint of fear in their eyes, there was more killing intent. As for fear, they didn't feel it at all. All of you are very strong. Half step to immortality? Jiang Chen stared at the 3 men, his heart pounding. Half step to immortality, but it's enough to kill you. Why would I need half step to immortality to kill you? Chapter 1356. Half step to immortal ascension. That was the highest realm that cultivators could reach since prehistoric times. Such people would not make a move, but once they made a move, the world would be turned upside down. If the 3 people in front of him were really half step to immortal ascension, then things would be much simpler. Jiang Chen would just admit defeat and stop fighting. After all, he could not defeat them. But now, each of you has a domain. Are you trying to trap me here and kill me? Jiang Chen whispered. His eyes were cold and bright. The shadow of a dragon seemed to appear on his spine, and the roar of a fierce tiger came from his chest. Boom! The moment his voice fell, the 3 of them vaguely saw a dragon claw strike out, bombarding their triple domains. However, the triple domain was not a joke. After the dragon claw was launched, it only caused a slight ripple on the light screen that was formed by the domain. Kid, this is a domain that the 3 of us set up together. Just one domain alone is not something that you can break. I'll send you on your way. At this moment, the 3 people stood where they were and raised their hands. The power of laws and divine power fell and bombarded Jiang Chen. In the domain, all attacks could not be avoided. This was the rule of the domain. Therefore, they did not need to target Jiang Chen. As long as they attacked, they would be able to hit Jiang Chen with 100% certainty. Jiang Chen also knew how powerful the domain was. At this moment, a roar came from his body, and the tiger bone and dragon meridian shook. If that's the case, then let's fight head-on. Jiang Chen roared. No one would help him in this battle. He could only rely on himself. With a long roar, Jiang Chen rushed out. His left hand formed the dragon seal, and his right hand formed the tiger fist. With a push, he scattered the 3 people's attacks. At the same time, an ancient clock appeared above his head, and the hour hand began to turn slowly. Die! Who gave you the courage to unify the greater world? Even we have no dominator, let alone you. The 3 of them shouted angrily and calmly stood where they were. Their hands continuously slapped out, and one attack after another fell like a violent storm. Jiang Chen knew that he couldn't avoid these attacks, so he was very tough. He charged out and tore apart the terrifying divine power with his bare hands. In the end, he arrived in front of these 3 people. Boom! At this moment, Jiang Chen didn't make any unnecessary movements. He swung his fists and blasted wildly. He was very clear that if he wanted to win today's battle, then it would be a bloody battle. Either he would die within these 3 domains, or the 3 of them would be killed by him, and the domains would automatically collapse. Brat, with your God Emperor level body, you dare to fight us head-on? You really don't know what death is. These 3 people were also incomparably confident. They formed a triangular formation and instantly engaged in a fierce battle. with Jiang Chun. After half an instance's time, Jiang Chun didn't stop. His attacks were even more violent, and the three of them were beaten until their faces were full of cold sweat. Their attacks hit Jiang Chun squarely. But not only did Jiang Chun take it head-on, he didn't even have a scratch on him, especially the surface of his body, which was flawless and dazzling, like a piece of unpolished jade between heaven and earth, which couldn't be damaged at all. If I can't kill you today, my years of cultivation will be in vain. Brat, I can exhaust you to death. The three of them were enraged, and their attacks were even more violent. They didn't believe that they couldn't kill Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun looked fierce, but in fact, he was also under a lot of pressure. These three people's cultivation were there for all to see. Their attacks were powerful. Every time Jiang Chun took their attacks head-on, the blood and qi in his body would vibrate. If he hadn't been holding it in, he would have vomited blood by now. Suppress. After another half an instance's time, when the hour hand on top of Jiang Chun's head passed 15 minutes, Jiang Chun saw the opportunity and used the law of time to freeze one of the people in front of him. Then, the ever-changing heavenly lamp exploded with a sharp light, and a green sword light slashed across, cutting the person in half. However, the power of time hadn't reached its peak yet. The person's physical body had just been slashed by the sword light, and he broke free from the restraints of time. His soul escaped, and his physical body was reconstructed in an instant. The law of time? Be careful. This brat is not simple. The few of them were shocked. Even they couldn't comprehend such a supreme law. They didn't expect a cultivator of the god, the arch realm, to comprehend it. Kill. At this moment, Jiang Chun was almost crazy. He used his physical body to take their attacks head-on. At the same time, the three Tao spirits shone brightly. The vines and the inextinguishable fire filled the three-layered territory, and there were even green sword lights stirring in the territory like dragons. This place seemed to have been turned into chaos. They couldn't see their figures, but they could hear muffled groans from time to time. Of course, the smell of blood permeated the air. Where's boss? Half a day later, Wakako led a group of people to the palace. The battle in the south had already ended. Many people had died, and even Wakako had half of his body shattered. He's fighting fiercely with three extraordinaires in the territory, someone replied. He didn't have time to help Jiang Chun at all. Moreover, who could help in such a battle? After all, not everyone was like Jiang Chun, who had low cultivation and high combat power. Territory? Wakako frowned. He looked at the chaotic light screen in front of him and raised his hand to punch it. However, the territory set up by the three extraordinaires was too powerful. Wakako's punch only caused some ripples on the light screen of the territory. It was impossible to penetrate it. He'll be fine, right? Someone muttered. But just as he finished speaking, he saw Wakako's murderous gaze. Boss will be fine. He's invincible, Wakako said in a low voice. After another half a day, Bai Fengyu and the rest also returned. They were all injured, especially Nayland Mayer. She was on the verge of death. If not for Bai Fengyu using the power of the moon to protect her, Nayland Mayer would have died long ago. It's all settled? The battles around the Black Market Palace are basically over. The remaining battles aren't something we can handle. The few of them gathered together and looked at the sky in the distance. There, the divine light was rolling like a river. It was a battle between the rotten and another powerful being. There were also battles between the three evil races' patriarchs and the other patriarchs. Wakako and the rest couldn't interfere in such battles. They could only stand near the Black Market Palace and watch quietly. At the same time, they were worried about Jiang Chun. After all, Jiang Chun's battle had lasted for too long, almost an entire day. The rotten isn't here. Who can stop me in the ancestral court? Suddenly, an extremely arrogant voice came from afar. Then, Enchi, who had left earlier, arrived with a group of Red Spider Lily Clan experts. After these people arrived, they didn't say anything and directly pounced on Jiang Lu and the others. Enchi, if you dare to attack, I'll destroy you. The Rotten's angry roar came from afar, and a terrifying aura erupted above the clouds. Rotten, don't worry, I won't attack. I'll just let a few of my clansmen exchange blows with his brothers and disciples. As for life and death, humph. And Chi sneered. Then his eyes narrowed, and he shouted to his clansmen, kill. Chapter 1357. And she had returned. He knew that the Rotten One couldn't make a move and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Jiang Chun and the others in one fell swoop. However, and she was still afraid of the Rotten One. He didn't make a move himself and only sent some emperors and a few transcendents. However, even if Enchi didn't make a move, the people he sent were enough to kill Jianglu and the others. Let's fight. Who's afraid of who? It's just death. What's there to be afraid of? Jianglu, Wakako, and the others were very direct. There was no fear in their eyes at all. To them, if they hadn't met Jiang Chun, they might have died long ago. Their footsteps would have stopped in the godless continent or the divine world of the ninth heaven. They were very satisfied to be able to reach this point. Therefore, to them, what was there to be afraid of? If they couldn't win, at most, they would die. They weren't even afraid of death. What was there to be afraid of? Kill. Since prehistoric times, this world has been the world of my red spider lilies. Since when did you have the right to dominate? After today, this world will belong to my red spider lilies. At this moment, both sides made a move. They used their strongest combat power. However, not long after the battle started, people were injured one after another, especially Jianglu and Wakako. These two were too fierce. They completely ignored defense and rushed to the front. Injuries were the last thing they would suffer. Back off. I'll do it. Wakako looked at Jianglu, whose body was cracked. Purple, domineering aura erupted from his body. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was as if there were purple stars rotating. Why aren't you retreating? Back off. I'll do it. Jianglu raised his eyebrows. His body was almost bouncing in a short period of time, but he never took a step back. This was because he and Wakako knew that if they retreated, the people behind them would definitely die. In the previous battle, Bai Fengyu, Naylan Meir, and the others were injured. At this moment, they were healing and couldn't fight at all. But at that moment, as the two strongest subordinates of Jiang Chun, if they retreated, the people behind them would all die. What's there to be afraid of when the three of us travel together? At this moment, Xiao Qingyi also rushed over. After devouring the ancient spirit, his combat strength had skyrocketed. He was no weaker than Jianglu and Wakako. I didn't take part in the last battle in the ninth heaven divine world, but this battle, I'll be there. Beta Heike had also come. He had always been very strong, but he rarely took part. But this time he was going all out. He was the last remaining member of the Pingtian clan. Even if he died, he had to preserve the pride of his clan. It's just a few emperors. Even if you were transcendents, you will all die today. After a fierce battle, Jianglu's body was shattered and his soul was shaken. He was almost annihilated. Fortunately, Xiao Qingyi acted in time. He used the necromancy technique that he was best at and banished Jianglu's soul to the void. Although he couldn't come back for the time being, he was still safe. Did you see that? Don't be afraid of death. Leave behind a wisp of your soul, and I guarantee that you won't be destroyed. Xiao Qingyi said. He was very confident in his necromancy technique. Just kill them and be done with it. Ruo Xiao roared angrily. She opened her fists wide and charged at one of the extraordinaries. He was truly fearless. As a tyrant, he understood the meaning of dominance to the extreme. There was no fear in his heart. However, there were too many people from the Red Spider Lilies this time, and they were too strong. After half an hour, Wakako's body was also shattered. Xiao Qingyi hurriedly banished his soul. Then, after Beta Heike killed a transcendent, his soul dimmed, and he almost died on the spot. Helpless, Xiao Qingyi could only swallow his soul and store it in his body. As long as he didn't die, Beta Heike wouldn't die. However, could Xiao Qingyi guarantee that he wouldn't die in today's battle? He could banish Wakako and Jianglu's souls and guarantee that they wouldn't be destroyed. But who would banish his soul? Beta Heike, it seems that you and I are going to die today. Xiao Qingyi was still persevering. The undead army appeared one after another, but they couldn't last for more than 3 to 5 breaths. He was too tired. He was gradually getting tired. The divine power in his body was being consumed too quickly. If you die, it'll really be 1 corpse and 2 lives, Beta Heike joked. He was close to death, but he was still fearless. It's not just 1 corpse and 2 lives. Xiao Qingyi sighed. He looked back at Bai Fengyu and the others. He knew very well that if he fell, the group behind him would also die. However, he wanted to persevere, but he really couldn't hold on any longer. The attacks of the red spider lilies were too violent, especially the attacks of those transcendents. They could even split the sky and shake the earth. If he hadn't swallowed Gu Ling and obtained most of her power, he would have died long ago. A man is about to die. The wine in the cup is mixed with blood, and it becomes an injury. Suddenly, a leisurely voice sounded. No one could tell where this voice came from, but in a few breaths, 3 emperors of the red spider lilies were pierced between their eyebrows and died on the spot. Mu Xingyan, Xiao Qingyi, and the others were shocked. They didn't expect this guy to come and help. However, although Mu Xingyun's assassination skills were strong, there were too many people on the other side, and there were even transcendents. Mu Xingyan couldn't solve the problem at all by killing a few people. I can't beat them. I can't help. I'll leave first. After a few breaths, Mu Xingyun sighed. He attacked, but he was also locked on by the other side's transcendence. If he attacked again, he would die too. You guys are really good. Before Mu Xingyun could retreat, an extremely angry voice came from not far away. As soon as the voice reached here, a lotus bloomed in the distance. The lotus leaves were resplendent, and there were exactly 72 of them. Chanting Chang'e, 72 lotuses. At this moment, Xiao Qingyi and the others were excited. They knew very well that apart from Jiang Chun, chanting Chang'e was the strongest in their group, and this guy's 72 lotuses could be said to be heaven-defying. It fused 72 kinds of magical powers together. However, no one expected chanting Chang'e to come. Chang'en? Chang'e? You're still alive? At this moment, and Qi exclaimed. Then, even Rotten exclaimed. Clearly, chanting Chang'e's identity was indeed not simple. These prehistoric powerhouses all knew him, especially Enchi. The moment he saw chanting Chang'e, fear appeared on his face. There was even a trace of fear in the depths of his eyes. Enchi, you were arrogant in prehistoric times. I didn't expect you to still be like this today. Chanting Chang'e raised his eyebrows and walked over slowly on the 72 lotuses. When he arrived in front of Enchi, he joked, "What? Do you still want to fight with me? You can't still be alive. If you're still alive, how could the ancient heavenly court be destroyed?" Enchi said solemnly. Chanting Chang'e was standing in front of him alive, but he still didn't want to believe that he was still alive. Chapter 1358. Nian Chang'e's arrival was beyond everyone's expectations. After all, after Nian Chang'e and the Ghost King Bell left, no one except Jiang Chun had seen him again. Jiang Chun had mentioned to them once in a while that Nian Chang'e might not come back. And in the previous battle, Nian Chang'e had never appeared. But unexpectedly, he still came at this critical moment. Perhaps he had always been worried about Jiang Chun and the others, or perhaps he had always been paying attention to them. But what was more shocking was not Nian Chang'e's arrival, but in Qi's words. If Nian Chang'e was still alive, how could the ancient heavenly court be destroyed? What did he mean? There is no such thing as invincibility. Nian Chang'e sighed, a trace of bitterness and helplessness in the depths of his eyes. He didn't deny his relationship with the ancient heavenly court, but he didn't say what it was, and Enchi didn't say either, as if it was a taboo. At this moment, with the arrival of Nian Chang'e, the battle near the hall stopped. Only the 3 evil race ancestors and the Rotten One were still fighting fiercely. Obviously, the opponent they encountered was very strong, and even the Rotten One couldn't deal with him in a short time. Since I'm here, how about we call off today's battles? Nian Changa looked at Enchi, a cold light flashing in his eyes. This is not the prehistoric era. You should recognize the current situation. So what? I wasn't afraid of you in the prehistoric era, let alone now? Enchi raised his eyebrows. The moment he saw Nian Changa, he was indeed afraid. But now, he could see that Nian Changa's condition was not right. His cultivation and strength were not as good as in the prehistoric era. You had an accident? Otherwise, the ancient heavenly court would not have been destroyed. And she said coldly, you are no longer the former him. You can't stop me, and you can't stop my Red Spider Lily clan. Of the 6 ancestors of the Red Spider Lily clan, you are ranked last. Nian Changa said softly, seeing that you are full of confidence. Does that mean that the other 5 ancestors of the Red Spider Lily clan are still alive? It's good that you know. And Chi proudly raised his chin. No one knew better than him just how powerful the Permitha Flower clan was. Amongst the 6 ancestors of the Permitha Flower clan, his strength was ranked the weakest. However, in this era, he was still synonymous with invincibility. Even Rotten didn't dare to start a fight with him easily. However, Enchi was indeed afraid of Rotten, so they retreated to save face for both sides. But if a war really broke out, Enchi would definitely dare to fight. Now that he thought about it, the strength of the other 5 ancestors of the Permitha Flower clan was obvious. Since you don't want to stop, then I can only take action. Nian Changa sighed, and a trace of reminiscence flashed in her eyes. He looked at Enchi for a while and smiled bitterly. You know, sometimes invincibility is really forced out. Really? In this world, with the 6 ancestors of my Permitha Flower clan here, who dares to claim to be invincible? Enchi became even more arrogant. He tore apart the void with his bare hands. He stared at Nian Changa and said, our descendants and disciples are here. Why don't we fight in the void? As you wish. Nian Changa sighed and looked at Xiao Qingyi and the others with a bitter smile. I can only stop him. As for the others of the Permitha Flower clan, you can only deal with them yourselves. With that, Nian Changa directly entered the void, and then Enchi charged in. Boom! The moment the void closed, an explosion rang out. It was as if thunder had descended from the 9 heavens, causing the entire great 1,000 world to tremble. Vaguely, everyone seemed to sense waves of immortal chi spreading out from the void. Both of them have become immortals? Is this the mortal chi? Everyone was shocked. After all, only immortals had such immortal chi. They haven't become immortals yet. Perhaps they're just one step away, someone explained. Or perhaps they're both waiting for an opportunity. Kill. If we kill you, there will be no more ancestral court. At this moment, the Permitha Flower clan attacked again, and their attacks were even more violent. Xiao Qingyi's face was pale. He kept summoning the undead army and sacrificing his essence blood to stop them. However, it was far too difficult for him to stop so many powerful cultivators from the Red Spider Lily clan by himself. With no other choice, Xiao Qingyi retreated. However, as he retreated, he swept up a gust of chilly wind and turned it into a ship. After putting the people of Ancestral Court on it, he threw it into the void. Xiao Qingyi, what are you doing? Go! Bai Fengyu and the others were shocked. They knew the consequences of Xiao Qingyi's actions. He must die. I'm very happy and satisfied to be able to be with you all in this life. Xiao Qingyi's back was facing them, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. However, he smiled and said, if I didn't meet you, perhaps I would still be an invisible person in this world. Now, I'm famous in the world, and I've made a trip to this world. Why should I fear death? But I can't accompany boss anymore. With that, the divine power in Xiao Qingyi's body surged and burned like a pillar of fire. He wanted to burn his Dao fruit to isolate this place, so that Bai Fengyu and the others could have some time to escape. I said, it's a bit hot. Beta Haiki's soul was in Xiao Qingyi's body. She said mockingly, your Dao fruit is really fierce. After burning it, did you think about my feelings? 2 lives in one body. Xiao Qingyi also joked, if there's a next life, I won't devour you. I hope there's a next life. Beta Heike sighed, feeling reluctant. He was the only one left in the Pingtian clan. There were rumors that there might be another ancestor of the Pingtian clan in the ancestral realm. However, they probably wouldn't see him in this life, right? They're just ants. Do they think they can stop us by burning their Tao fruit? Even if they escape today, where can they go? This world belongs to the Permitha Flower Clan. The experts of the Permitha Flower Clan had cold expressions. After destroying the ancestral court today, the power of the upper-class world would fall into their hands again. As for whether Rotten and the others would avenge Jiang Chun and the others, they didn't have to worry about that at all. After all, not many people in this world would avenge a few dead people. Moreover, the Permitha Flower Clan had a total of 6 ancestors. If they all came out, the world would definitely be united at that time. So what if they were rotten? So what if they were evil ancestors? So what if they were Nyin Changa? I say, the main character, haven't left yet. Why are you running? Suddenly, an explosion came from behind Xiao Qingyi. 3 domains exploded, and then a green lamp burned leisurely. A remnant soul shone with divine light in the lamp, and its body was being reconstructed at a visible speed. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.